Is it on? Let's see. All right. For those showing up today, hey, good evening, showing up today, guys. My name is JCO Journey. My phone right now is not acting up, so my camera quality, y'all not gonna be able to see my face. I might get back on. I know I gotta put that link in for somebody. Let me put that link in for him. Crap. Because I know I do not like these. I say, yeah. So yeah, I got the link in the chat right here if you want to join in. So basically right here, I got Steve McRae. And we're going to go basically on some of these comments. Basically going to the top right now is atheism. Best understood as a definition as the philosophical understanding of belief there is no God. So yeah, this is the most informal introduction. So if you want to come in right now, that's all I got for introduction.
Yeah, no worries, man. How are you? Glad to be on your show. First time here, actually. Well, I've watched some of your videos, obviously, but first time actually on YouTube with you.
This is my first actually live stream with somebody actually on the camera. So yeah,
I feel special. I'm your first. You always remember your first, man. So I'm told.
It's my most awkward stream I have. Then probably.
Yeah, I say I always say I remember my first plural, but whatever.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's a joke.
So if you want to, you introduce yourself to the three people in the audience, just to introduce yourself if you want to.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, my name's Steve McRae. I'm the host of the Non Sequitur Show. I write an epistemological blog. I'm kind of infamous in atheist circles for trying to explain to them basic epistemological concepts, a little bit of logic, a little bit of philosophy. I have some unique arguments that have been circling around the atheist spheres for quite some time. One of which was a paper that you had just recently put on one of your videos. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing, but I did, parse through it for the most part. And that's kind of what I'm known for. I'm known for having debates and analyzing debates and talking about these topics on YouTube and social media.
All right. So I know, I got some in the chat right here. I think named Sean. I know we had conversation before with Sean. I had conversation with Sean before. He was the guy who, if you hold the pin comment, the one pin comment in the last video or the 2 videos ago. But yeah, it probably has a little more discussions about this right now. As Sean right here.
Yeah, I'm looking for the challenge, man. I'm always up for a challenge for honest. I have a motto: honest interlocutors get honest answers. And so anybody that wishes to engage me and challenge me, I'm all for it.
Shoot. All right. So yeah, I just have the basic guidelines. Everybody try to be respectful as much as you can. Try not to attack each other. I mean, I know things might get out of hand a little bit, but just trying to go.
Yeah, I have no interest of anybody being hostile. I'm here for the people that want to talk about the subject on an educational level at a foundational, probably I'd say philosophy 100, philosophy 200 level. That's where I'm basically arguing from.
All right. I say, all right,
Sean. Test. Yeah, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Hi, Sean.
Okay. Hi. How are you?
Good.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm assuming the topic.
Now I can't hear him.
Can you hear me?
Kind of cut out a little bit.
All right. How about now? Are you guys good?
Yeah. We hear you.
Yes. Go ahead.
So.
Okay, now I lost
him.
Off? Yeah, I can't hear him either.
Yeah, you cut off a little bit. Sean, can you hear us?
Yeah, it sounds like you're both talking at the same time.
He has the video on. That's why. You need to turn off the video on YouTube because you're in the StreamYards. That's why.
Okay. That took care of it. I think everything's good now. So, from my standpoint, words don't have intrinsic objective meanings. They have usages. We mutually agree upon the definition of, say, pencil. And so when I say pencil, you guys have an understanding of what I mean by the word. So the word atheist, some people take it, now it is duplicitous as far as, how people understand the definition. I don't know how one can be objectively wrong. I use the Webster definition, the definition used in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. There are other references in philosophy where they describe it more as hard atheism, but I don't think any of that matters. When I say atheist, I simply mean I do not believe any gods exist. When I label myself that, so how can a word be wrong when words don't have intrinsic meanings?
All right, there's a little bit to parse out there, so you're going to have to give me a few minutes here because you have a lot of
Sure.
concepts that you addressed. First, that's never been my argument. I do not argue in any way, shape, or form that words have any kind of intrinsic meaning, as you noted. Absolutely, as Wittgenstein had specifically even noted, that words have meaning through usages. They are descriptors. They're called signifiers that represent some kind of concept. That when you have a locutionary act, when you say something, somebody else is going to interpret that in some way. And you have a meaning that you have for saying such a word, right? That's called your illocutionary effect or your illocutionary act. And so when people use the word atheist, they want to impart to somebody what their position is with respect to the ontological status of God. Now, as you noted in Stanford Encyclopedia, the most prevalent usage of the term atheist is the belief there is no God. That's standard in philosophy. If you've read this,
no, it was the opposite.
No. If you read Stanford Encyclopedia, Dr. Draper makes it very clear. He even says in philosophy, the standard use of the word is the proposition of theism is false, or that the belief that there is no God. He actually says that. It's in the first paragraph.
Okay, so where there might be different, and that's why I said there's even in philosophy there's multiple. Because I'm at https plato.stanford.edu entries atheism/agnosticism, and it says the word atheist. Now I might be mispronouncing this, but it means multi meanings.
Polysemous.
Yeah, it has multiple related meanings. In the psychological sense of the word, atheism is the psychological state, specifically the state of being an atheist, where an atheist is defined as someone who is not a theist, and a theist is defined as someone who believes that a God exists or that there are gods.
And read the very next statement.
This generates the following definition.
After the next one. After that.
This generates following definition. Atheism is a psychological state of lacking the belief that God exists. In philosophy, okay, so here we go. In philosophy,
yeah, read this part.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And more specifically in the philosophy of the term atheism is standardly used to refer to the proposition that God does not exist. Okay, got you. So
I've known this paper quite well.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. So It could be that in philosophy, and it appears that may be the case. It's kind of like in science. The word theory means something very different than it means
correct
in everyday use. So you don't have. So it sounds like, and I know I've debated with JCO. I forget his actual first name. About this, it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like you have a problem with people using the term atheism to simply mean lacking belief.
I do, but for different reasons, right? You have to realize that yes, words have usages, and people do use the word like that. But doing so, there occurs some kind of epistemic and logical issues. Like, and so when people, well, first of all, one of the main ones is ambiguity. Because lacking a position doesn't tell me what your position is. If I say what you want for dinner and you tell me you don't want chicken, I have no idea what you want for dinner. You're not telling me anything specific. You're just saying that this is not the case, but you're not telling me what your actual position on the matter is. So when you say you don't believe in God, you're not telling me what your position on the ontological status of God propositionally is. You're not telling me if you hold the proposition to be true, nor are you telling me that it's false. You're telling me essentially that you take the agnostic position, that you have no position either way. But some atheists, like yourself, you I assume that you believe there's no God, right? Is that your position?
No, I have. Well, I believe there's certain gods that there are certain gods that I believe don't exist. But in the broad sense, I have the bigger questions of the universe. Does some kind of entity exist that could be reasonably interpreted as a god? I have no idea.
Right, but in general, I have a very stipulative definition I use for my arguments, and anybody can use it. They don't have to adopt it, but I just think it's real. It's real that it captures the essence of what we're asking about when we're asking about if there's a God or not. Because what are we all talking about? And I think that if we're going to have a discussion on God, there needs to be at least some kind of understanding of what is it being asked. And so my stipulative definition of God that I use is, quote, a necessary being or agent with intentionality that all contingents are dependent upon and or can prescriptively change or suspend natural law by having some complete dominion over an aspect of nature, such as a Greek or Roman God. So what I'm asking you is, do you think there's some being that has an intelligence that exists that all of creation is dependent upon? That's really all I want to know. I mean, sure, people get more nuanced than that, but if you say no to that, then I'm going to call that as atheist.
Well, you asked me if I think that. I don't.
Yes.
I do not believe that to be true.
Okay.
However, I don't claim it to be false because I have no way.
So you're
to,
agnostic on the proposition.
I consider myself an atheist, and again, I just use a different definition than you do.
But let me ask you this: why do you use the term atheist? If the position in philosophy, you've obviously read Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Sanford,
right?
Which was impressive. A lot of atheists don't even know what that actually is, and that is the gold standard of philosophy. I mean, this is where the experts go to get their resources for their own works, right? This is the cited source on philosophy, bar none. I don't think there's any cited source that's probably more than Stanford Encyclopedia, and so. Why would you use a term that already has an existing term? Like I'm an agnostic. That's my position. Right. That label describes me because I have no position either way. If you read the literature about suspending judgment, then that's what that word is going to mean. So if I read Freeman's work on suspending judgment and she says, S is agnostic on P, I know she's telling me that S has no position on P, right? So why would you want to change that to atheist, which could be, okay, they have no position on P, or they believe there's no God, because those are vastly two different positions. So why would you want to adopt one label that's ambiguous over one A label that has no ambiguity? Because agnostic inside and outside of philosophy is I don't have a position either way.
Because in the circles in which I discuss theology, it is the most common definition that with the people that I'm exposed to and communicate with. I tend not to discuss theistic topics with people in my everyday life, because generally, around work, and if somebody's a believer or what have you, and I don't believe, it's an uncomfortable conversation. And the time where I get to express myself and discuss my theological position, it is in circles, which it is the most common definition that I'm exposed to. And so I identify as an atheist. Just
so it's utility to you.
Exactly.
It's utility. Okay, but here's the pushback I have on that. One, if we're going to be critical thinkers and we're going to be, as non-believers, skeptics, and we're going to be like labeling ourselves all these things, why is it we lose precision on philosophy when we maintain precision in scientific aspects? You had mentioned earlier, like the word theory. If you're talking to a bunch of creationists, and I was at one time pretty well known in the young Earth creationist, anti-young Earth creationist movement. I have some name recognition there. When I'm talking to creationists, I don't allow them to use theory to mean guess. I don't allow them to mean evolution as merely change, just because they have that in their communities as their usages as, evolution just means change. No, when I'm speaking to them in or outside of their community, I'm going to mean evolution to be something along the lines of a change of allelic frequency or inheritable traits from one population of species generation to the next. If I'm talking about theory, I'm going to talk about it as some kind of well-substantiated body of evidence that explains facts, that makes testable, accurate predictions, and explains observable phenomenon. I'm not going to lower my standards and start using these what's called sensu lato usages of terms when I should be using sensu stricto, because no matter where you are, you're still talking about a specific domain of discourse that has standard usages to avoid ambiguities, such as using atheism in two vastly different ways.
Hold on just one second, guys. I know you're having a good conversation right here. Do y'all feel like y'all want to have at least someone named Reddit want to come in, or y'all still want to have it keep it main?
I'm sorry, what do you want to have?
Someone else want to come in the chat. Do y'all feel like y'all want to keep it those two? Roll that. I got you.
I mean, that guy.
I don't know who he is.
Yeah, what does he know about philosophy? Hey, Mr. Red's Rhetoric.
Sup?
Welcome to our Q&A. Yes, my friend.
I got questions for you, Steve.
This is not your genre.
Here's the thing. I may not be an expert in philosophy, Steve. I'm pretty sure you got that pretty well locked down. But what I am what I am an expert in is not wasting time. So here's my question to you. The idea of labels and putting this one word title over everything seems to be a colossal waste of time. Isn't it better to start off with the definition and just letting the other person decide the label? Because what I think we're falling into is we're falling into an area that in reality, it doesn't matter. What matters is if a person understands your actual position, not the word they use to label that position in the first place. If you were to accept a person's actual position and just pick a word at random, you can then proceed with the actual conversation instead of getting bogged down in something that I would say is completely irrelevant.
Exactly.
And I love the fact that you asked that, Reds. Reds Reddick is an extremely smart man. If anybody don't know, he's the top anti-flat earther on YouTuber, bar none, and happens to be one of my best friends of all time. And this is a wonderful question. And here's the answer to that. That works both ways, right? I mean, if people are going to say, let's discuss the definition and then decide on one and have the discussion that way, then why is it that whenever I tell people I'm not an atheist, I'm being told by atheists that they don't accept my definition? Some of them say that that definition in Stanford doesn't even exist. Sean here had a little bit of confusion in it before you got here that we rectified. But I'm being told that I have to adopt their label, that we can't even get to have the discussion because I'm already being told that my uses of terms are incorrect, which is absolutely ridiculous, right? I mean, this is philosophy 101. But, you know, if you're talking about meeting people halfway or something like that, then why is it I'm being told that my uses are wrong? I mean, JCO had my paper on his last video. I'm told my paper is wrong. Reds, you've seen my paper. You know how vetted it is by how many countless PhDs in this circles that we have. There are no substantive logical errors. I'm confident of that, but I'm being told that's incorrect, right?
They are equally wrong.
Why is that?
They are equally wrong. They
are
just as wrong as you are.
Let me just get this out. I am happy. Well, hang on. I'm happy to have, if somebody wants to have the lack of belief as a definition, I don't quibble on that. I'm like, okay, let's find out if you do use that. What happens though? That's the point of my paper. If you do adopt the negative case usages, what happens logically? And JCO has made a video on that. Right? What happens to semantic collapse? What happens to the axiological value of these terms?
Well,
so it's really
this is why I say
it's a philosophy argument more than anything.
Well, this is why I say it is important at the very beginning of a conversation to define your terms. So long as you guys can have a productive conversation, I would say at the very end, it doesn't even matter what word is used. And
I'll give you an example,
if we bog down over and over and over again with which word is the correct word, we're never going to get to the conversation itself.
I'll give you an example, Reds. The Reds, real quick, the word level and flat. Right, Reds? Yes. I mean, flat earthers love to have all these different usages of the terms, although you use it the way I use it, which is how would we use it for geometry and physics and stuff that nature, right?
Yes.
But when they try to say level and flat are the same thing, you balk at that.
Yeah, but there's a difference there, Steve. The difference is that yes, there is a difference. Okay. The difference there is that they're simply doing that to try and define flat Earth into existence. I'm not denying that you have a position that in that position has a label. It's just a question of, are we really going to split tiers over which label we're actually going to use for it?
Yeah, I think so. Reds, if we want to maintain precision, yeah.
Reds, are you an atheist?
Yep.
Okay. Do you lack belief in gods, or do you believe no gods exist?
I do not assert that God does and does not exist. My only assertion is that your arguments for his existence suck ass.
Hey, Reds,
okay. Hold on. There's a point here. Hey, Reds, I fully understand your position now, and now we can have a substantive conversation. That wasn't
Reds,
hard.
Reds, who converted you to atheism?
Who converted me? What?
Who changed your mind about your positions and converted you from Christianity to atheism?
You did
10 years ago. Yeah, that was me. So, I mean, we go way back on this, man. So,
no. I'm going to give you credit where I want to,
because we were able to have that discussion, right? We met in the middle.
Yeah, we did meet in the middle, and that's the thing. The reason why we were able to have that fruitful conversation is because, well, back in the day, Steve, and I hope you will agree with me on this, and I hope I do you no disservice by going on a little bit of history, but I don't remember you getting, pardon the phrasing here, so uptight about what words we were using to define our positions. We were more concerned with what our positions actually were.
And I'm only going to give one compliment here. You were not an idiot. I didn't need to. I mean, essentially speaking.
Okay, I'll give you that. Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah. It's like, you did that because you're a fucking idiot. Nice, good rebuttal.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really feel like it's you may disagree, but just kind of a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing, because it's too easy to quickly clarify someone's position. And I will agree with you. And people insist you're not an agnostic, you're an atheist. I mean, to me, that is equally wrong. So
yeah, and by the way, I understand, right, Rez. He has the same position as you. He has the same position with respect to God as I do. He's an agnostic, but he takes the atheist label for the same reasons you do. Have I ever tried to change your mind on that?
No, the only thing you've done is completely slammed my notifications with this argument.
I mean, it ended up being like at least by label, the topic of this particular live. So,
yeah, Sean, but do you agree though? Let's get down to the bare bones here.
Right.
That my usage is in line with standards of academia and philosophy, and that when people tell me that I'm wrong about something specifically relating to philosophy, they have a very strong burden of proof to demonstrate that my understanding of these topics has some insufficiencies, so is lacking something, which is fine. Of course, that could be true, and if it's so, then explain them to me so I can fix what my confusion is, and so my misunderstanding is. So that's not what happens, though. What I see is online atheists who have no understanding of philosophy by fiat just say Steve's wrong, and then they go off and they just parrot something with some trope, but have no profound or deep understanding of the actual philosophy that I'm speaking about. Do you think that those atheists should not consider themselves to be critical thinkers when they just shut down an argument merely because they have some kind of cognitive bias? Because if that's the case, then they're not being skeptical; they're being denialist.
Well, I'm not going to sum up the whole of a person of not being a critical thinker if they have one position that's not well researched or well thought through.
Okay, that's fair, but limited in scope to that one particular argument.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think you make you make a very you make a compelling reason for yourself of why you adopt a certain, the label agnostic as opposed to atheist. And also colloquially in everyday use, you have many people use the same definition that you use that's used in philosophy. It is kind of nebulous. So no matter what, you do kind of have to.
I don't think agnostic
what's that?
If I don't think agnostic, if I said, I'm just going to make some random sentence up because something I ran into the other day, but if it's something like the mayor was agnostic about the building plans of making a mall in downtown, that's conveying something to the reader.
He doesn't have an opinion. He doesn't have an opinion.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, See, I didn't tell you what it meant there. It has a conveyance of meaning by usage of what we mean by to be agnostic on something. It has nothing to do with knowledge. This is another thing that I don't understand why people conflate domains of discourse, because
many people take agnostic and take that as I don't know, but you can not know something, but believe it to be true.
That's true. But here's
quickly, guys.
Yeah.
I know you're having a good conversation right here. I'm just curious, how's the limit? Y'all feel like y'all can have a conversation like this? Because I got someone in the chat right now.
Oh, I do. Yeah, let me finish up with Sean and catch the next call. Absolutely. Do you mind if Red sticks around, or do you want?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. And so, oh yeah, with where was I at? The term with agnostic, right? I've got my train of thought. It happens often. Where were you going with that, Sean?
Oh no, yeah. So it's in some circles, agnostic means I don't know.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can not know, but still
right.
Yeah.
So let me point that out though. The term
like I believe OJ's guilty, but I don't know, and I know knowledge is a subset of belief.
Right. But there's an equivocation you just did there, right?
Go ahead.
When we're talking about I don't know with respect to an answer to a proposition, right, that is an indirect answer, and what that's meaning is I don't know how to answer the question. It's a big difference is that I don't have the knowledge to claim knowledge, or I don't have the justification to claim knowledge. There's a significant difference there. When I say, I believe, so when a theist says, I believe God exists, but I don't know that God exists because he's not claiming it as knowledge.
Right.
There's a specific thing relating to epistemological understanding of the word knowledge there, relating to justified true belief or something. But if I just say, hey, do you believe in God? And you say, or if I just say, does God exist? And you just say, I don't know, you're just responding to the proposition as you don't know how to answer it. It has nothing to do with epistemic knowledge whatsoever. It's about doubt. It's about indecision. You don't know how to say yes or no. Because if you say yes, you're a theist. If you say no, you're not a theist.
So yeah, so some, but what I'm saying though is some theists will say, I believe God exists. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I believe it. And then other theists will say, I know for a fact God exists.
Well, let me ask you, does it make a difference? I mean, does it really make a difference in the big picture? If you want to go after like their belief about, are they justified to believe in God? Does it really matter if you attack their knowledge or you attack their belief? The belief has if you attack the belief, you got the knowledge, right?
But there's a point. Is what I'm saying is the word agnostic isn't so cut and dry to where there's only one understood meaning, because
but there's a standard.
The first one would, many people would consider them an agnostic theist, and the second example, they would consider them a Gnostic theist. Again, so the words are fungible. That's just the way it's became.
Not the term I would use, but here's the thing. I like the agnostic atheist, the atheist, agnostic and Gnostic atheist. I've done completely different arguments on, so it'd probably be outside the scope of this to get into the technicalities of wider to avoid terms like agnostic atheist. Draper makes some really good arguments for it, but unless somebody asked that question, I don't. That'd be a rabbit hole. That'd take a long time to discuss that. But there is a standard. The standard is agnostic means that you don't have position either way. So when you say, hey, does God exist? And the theist says yes, they've answered the question. It's a direct response. If they say no, they've answered with a direct response, meaning they're not a theist. It doesn't imply that they're atheist. You cannot logically get from not theist to atheist. JCO's video points that out that he had that I skimmed through. Did not, JCO? You were making the argument that the set of atheism and the set of non-theism are not the same set size. One is a subset of the other. Yes, that is correct in philosophy. That's understood.
In philosophy, by that definition,
right? But here's the thing: when I'm having a philosophical discussion with somebody, like let's say, like Reds and I are having a discussion on my channel about philosophy, and I have some, online atheists come in and say, "Oh, Steve, you're wrong," but they're not using the uses I'm using, right? They're not meeting at my level.
Right, you agree upon terms. So, hey, what do you mean when you say what do you mean by when you say you're an atheist? I mean this.
But they said and then you can move on. They said that's a straw man. Oh, Steve, you're straw manning atheism by doing that, which is ridiculous because atheism is not an argument. You can't straw man something that's not an argument.
Sure, but like I said, it goes both ways. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair. Thank you, Sean.
Okay.
Who do we got here? Peggy?
Poggy?
Poggy?
Close enough.
I can't read it. I'm sorry. It's too small. I apologize.
Let me know if my mic sounds terrible. I haven't really done a sound check or anything. Sorry.
No, sounds good. Poggy. Okay.
This morning. I was going to live stream on my channel this morning for gaming, but I feel kind of sick today. So
hope you feel better.
But yeah, thank you. So I've been listening, and I just want to say, first of all, JCO, I think you and I maybe got off on the wrong foot, and so I just want to move on and pretend we didn't have that conversation. And just
it never happened.
Oh, that's sweet. That's how communities are built. That's amazing. Thank you, Pog. I don't know what it was about, but the fact that you apologized, or you just kind of like wanted to start afresh. That's nice.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So
I came for blood and guts. This is disappointing.
Yeah, this is disappointing, man. I thought there was a blood sport.
I mean, there is about to be probably. I actually spoke to Dr. Draper on his article in 2020, and he doesn't agree with you. And I can let's go there. Quote specifically.
Did you ask about me?
Quote from his article. No, I'm saying he doesn't agree with what you're saying. Right now. You're not
because I've talked to Dr. Oppie, and he says that Draper does agree with me. So,
sort of, yes. Okay. But the thing is, you're saying that it has a specific definition. And I agree with you within certain contexts that it does, but he specifically even says and outlines, number one, definitions of atheism. The word atheism is polysemous. It has multiple related meanings.
And I'm the one that's argued that for 8. Here's the thing, Poggy. 8 years ago, I argued that atheism is polysemous, and I was told I was wrong by atheists, that atheism was only, quote, one thing, a lack of belief, and that comes from American Atheist. I was the one out there saying American Atheist, we're wrong for trying to convince atheists that atheism is merely or only or just a lack of belief, because there are other usages, such as the standard usage in philosophy. And I was told by atheists I was wrong about that. I have videos discussing that atheism is polysemous. Okay. So do you agree that Dr. Draper is agreeing with me on this?
I would, if that's your position, which is not the position that I understood.
Yeah, that's my position. That's been my position since I've started on YouTube.
But But there is a further thing that I would disagree with, because in the philosophy that he's talking about, because we emailed back and forth a couple of times. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but he essentially said that the question, is there a God, is the question that's being addressed in the philosophical article that you're talking about. Not, do you believe there's a God, which is what atheists are talking about generally when they talk about, am I accepting the theist proposition? They're not saying, is there a God as a claim to knowledge? They're saying, is there a God as a claim to, do I believe this claim?
It's a dostastic question, right? When we're talking about the dostastic domain, we're talking about simply what's in your belief box. What is it that you are holding as a epistemic disposition towards a specific proposition? In this case, the proposition is that God exists. That's what we're asking about. This is why when we start talking about knowledge, I find it to be muddying the water, because, Poggy, do you agree that probably most online atheists have never looked into what a theory of knowledge is?
I wouldn't know, but I would say probably.
Okay, let's say probably. And so when we're talking about undermining a theist's knowledge claim, if you undermine the belief claim, since belief is a necessary precondition for knowledge, you've already kind of undermined their justifications. Why be bogged down with knowledge? Because it's so much more difficult to get into, because then you have to explain, okay, how are you justifying this knowledge? What theory of knowledge are you using? Are you meeting sufficiency conditions? Are you using direct causal theory? Are you using JTP plus, semantic theories, pragmatic theories? It makes the conversation so much more difficult, other than, oh, you have this belief. What are your rationales for that belief? So much more simplistic of a question.
And I think so far, from what I'm hearing, it seems like we largely agree. There's different contexts of the word.
Okay, and I agree.
The context of me as an atheist colloquially identifying as I don't believe. Now, if you're going to say atheism in philosophy means there is no God or whatever, I'm sure.
I'm just arguing that that's the standard usage, and that's just not just Stanford. Yes. That's Cambridge, Oxford, all of them recognize that the generally the standard usage of atheism is in the positive, with the positive.
And my only point is, if that's what you're saying, that's what that is, and I would agree with you. That's what that seems to be what they describe it.
And notice though, when you came in, you said he disagreed with me, because you had that. I'm not trying to be disparaging, but you had that cognitive bias based upon some preconception that wasn't the case, and so that's what I see a lot of atheists have. Yeah,
maybe I just misheard you.
It's understandable. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, in that definition, I'm not an atheist.
You're an agnostic
under a different set of definitions. Under that definition, I would be agnostic. I don't necessarily adhere to those definitions. Typically speaking, in colloquial conversation. Under a philosophical conversation, I will. Like, I had a debate with Eric Hernandez in 20.
Oh, I love him. I met him personally. He's a great guy.
Yeah, we're still friends. We're actually thinking of having another discussion soon.
Yeah, tell him hi for me. Wonderful guy.
I am fine with, and I think other atheists should probably be okay with this too. I don't know why they don't do this. A lot of rational people should do this in general. I am fine with adopting his definitions for the sake of having a philosophical argument, as long as we're clear that under his definition of atheism is the position there is no God. I'm not taking the position as an atheist then, because I don't make that claim. Yeah,
no, I understand. And that's a different discussion, right? I could, in a different Q&A or something, ask you, what is it that you're lacking conviction for on the proposition there is no God? What is it you find that is insufficient in the arguments against the existence of God? Right. And you can get into, okay, I'm not convinced by the logical problem of evil. I'm not convinced by the evidential problem of evil. I'm not convinced by divine hiddenness. There's some insufficiencies there. So you're weighing the evidence for God, and you're weighing the evidence against God as a evidentialist point of view. And you're kind of applying Christian's formal structure on epistemology of how to decide whether to withhold affirmation or deny it, if you've looked into Christian's work. But you're doing all this philosophizing, which is great. And you've basically said, look, I've suspended judgment because I have insufficient evidence either way. That's my position, sort of. I mean, there's a little more nuance, but that's basically what I'm hearing from you. Is that correct?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, there's a little more to it than that.
Obviously.
My ultimate reason for lacking belief is just simply the theist position has not met its burden of proof.
Neither the atheist
more
position,
I could go into,
right?
but
the atheist hasn't met their burden of proof
position. The atheist position, as in the there is no God position, sure. The atheist position, as in there's a lack of belief, doesn't have a burden of proof.
It does. It absolutely does in epistemology.
It doesn't. So? It does not. There is no burden of proof to not accepting what you just said. There's no burden of proof for
that. So in epistemic justifications, Poggy, and I've just read I wrote something on this just recently, and I'll send it to you on Reddit. There are many types of burden of proof. Do you agree that I could literally name like 8 kinds, maybe 9? Do you agree there's multiple types of burden of proof?
Sure.
Okay. So if there's multiple types of burden of proof, then when we're talking about burden of proof, we're talking about burdens of justification. We're talking about burden of production, burden of persuasion, burden of refutation, burden of rejoinder, burden of evidentialism, burden of discursory burdens. We're talking about all these different things that happen in a conversation. There's not just one burden of proof. And so when you're discussing something with a theist and they're giving you a claim, your burden in that discussion.
Before you go on,
yeah,
I'm trying to interrupt. I just want to ask a question.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is, which of those? I mean, you're rattling off a lot of stuff, which is interesting, and I don't necessarily know all of these off the top of my head because I haven't studied too in depth on those burden of proofs. But my question is, what burden of proof or what burden of proof type are you ascribing to? I don't believe you.
Okay.
You haven't convinced me.
There's
what burden of proof do I have?
There's a burden. There's called discursory burdens, meaning that if we're going to have a dialectic in some kind of dialectic synthesis, and we're going to have a conversation to kind of to ascertain the truth, you have a burden to defend your reasoning of why you didn't accept my claim. You also have a burden to justify your second order belief, because agnostic is a belief. It is a second order belief. It's not a primary belief. It's not a direct belief, not a first order belief, but it is a second order belief about a belief. If you read Dr. Malpass, Agnosticism is a second order belief about a belief. And so all beliefs, to be rational, or even positions, require a justification to warrant sufficiency to hold that as a rationalized position.
Can I?
That's your burden of proof.
If I may also, but you can first.
Yeah. So. Oh, I'm sorry. Who's going to go first?
Oh, no, sorry. I don't know. I don't know which one he was speaking to. I'm sorry about that. So, when I believe Poggy, it means the same thing. When we say burden of theists have the burden of proof, that simply means we don't have the burden to prove God does not exist. We are not rationally justified to believe them until they substantiate their claim. Now, I agree if they make an argument. So if they make an argument, and I say Bob makes an argument that God exists, and I believe it's a fallacy, I have the burden of proof for a different proposition. Bob used a logical fallacy. That is now a positive claim on my part. But burden of proof means I am not rationally justified to believe your claim until you substantiate it, and it's not up to me to prove that your claim is false.
Okay, but again, the word proof comes. Okay, the burden of proof comes to onus probandi, right, which is a legal term, which is not how it's used in epistemology, and people have equivocation issues with this particular phrase of onus probandi. And so when we're talking about burdens, we're talking about, again, discursory burdens, evidential burdens, burdens of defense. When you're doing a debate, and if you look at formal argumentation theory, if you make a claim, the other side has what's called a burden of refutation to show there's insufficiencies in your argument. That's their burden.
May I actually sort of come in agreement with you and see if I understood what you meant?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So what I heard you say is that it seems like if I'm going to say I don't believe you, I have some kind of burden to at least explain what it is about what you said that I don't believe
in a discussion, right? If we're having a discussion on it, right? It's called like, for example, if I don't want to persuade you on something, if I don't have a burden of persuasion,
sure, and
a burden of persuasion is the burden to try to convince somebody that your position is correct if you want to persuade them.
Well.
Yeah. But if I say something to you like X equals X, which we all, I think, hopefully agree is the law of identity. If I say X equals X, or all of X equals X, and you, Poggy, you say I don't believe you, do you think I'm going to take you as a rational person? Do I think you're going to have understanding of logic, or be somebody that's probably going to have a civil conversation, or be able to articulate deep philosophical understandings if you don't even accept the law of identity?
Of course not.
Okay, so what I'd ask you, what makes you justified to withhold your affirmation of X equals X? That's your burden, to justify why you didn't accept it. It's simple as that. It's not complicated. So, you don't have to prove X equals false, because that is burden shifting.
Right. So I think then it depends on. I think it depends on what we mean by burden of proof. Like you were saying, there's multiple different definitions, and I think under
I'm giving
definitions,
philosophical
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that I don't believe you doesn't have the kind of burden of proof that we're talking about when it comes to proving a positive claim to knowledge. I don't believe you is not a positive claim to knowledge.
What would be proving? When you say prove, what do you mean by prove? Like when I mean prove, I mean formal logic, right? If I write a proof,
I don't mean.
Okay, you mean demonstrate?
Like mathematical.
Okay. Yeah. But demonstrates to your sufficiency, right? Because these are subjective evaluations, and again, there's different criteria for accepting and rejecting, and then suspending judgment. There's different criteria to be met here. And as these are all subjective evaluations. And if you subjectively evaluate that you don't accept X equals X, I don't take you as a rational agent. And so that's what we mean by burdens. And I think that what happens is online atheists hear that word burden of proof. And let me finish, please. That they've been indoctrinated to reject the concept of they have any responsibility to have any rationales for their not accepting of a proposition. Because if I say there is no God, right, to an atheist who already believes there is no God, they're not going to really ask me for my justifications. They're going to go, cool, I believe you, right? I don't need to tell them anything. They've already accepted the claim.
Steve, I have a question for you. So let's say JCO says, hey, God exists, and I truly believe that, and I have rational justification for that, and he does not provide sufficient evidence for that a God exists. No matter what, I am not rationally justified to believe his claim. Correct? Like it's not up to me to prove God does not exist.
It's definitely not okay. This is where I think a lot of people make mistakes.
No, I just want to make sure. Like we're in are we in agreement? Whether you call that burden of proof or not, you label it something else. Are we? You don't
have to prove he's wrong, and you don't have to accept it. But here's the thing: beliefs don't exist in a vacuum. Just because he didn't meet his burden of proof doesn't mean you haven't heard 1,000 other arguments or understand the arguments where you might be swayed to believe there's a God.
No, right? But that's true. But if I've never been presented, that's all. I think the vast majority of people, when they say burden of, so you seem to go on different like definitions, or maybe you learned it in philosophy. I don't know what your educational background is in philosophy, and then feel like this term must apply this way. You do have a burden of proof, and when you say burden of proof and I say burden of proof, we mean different things.
I mean burden of justification more than anything.
Well, right? Yeah, I know proof is mathematics and it's deductive, and I'm saying.
But this is all I'm saying.
Evidence
that
warrants belief.
But that's all I'm saying. But you know how, like I'm saying, I believe that a lot of atheists have been indoctrinated to avoid a burden of proof of any kind. They think it gives ground to the theist, and I think that's a poor way of looking at having to have a discussion.
I don't know.
I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong on that, because if you go and I participate in a lot of group chats and theological debates and everything else, and you will see atheists on the regular basis rip into shreds theistic arguments for God. So they don't dodge it. They just simply say, because
some do. But Sean, here's the thing, Sean. See what you're doing right now, though. You're giving me your burden of proof. You say, Steve, I don't believe you, and then you proceed to give me your burden of proof. You just met your burden of proof. See how easy that is?
No, I'm saying making a positive
fallacy.
I'm making a positive claim that you're wrong. That atheists.
No. It doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong here. You're missing the point. What you're doing is actually proving me right. You're actually demonstrating that I'm correct, because you said, Steve, I don't believe you, and then you proceeded to give me your burden of proof.
About
see how easy that is?
I made a positive claim that you're wrong, so that I have a burden of proof because I made
right. But initially you said I don't. But initially, let's just say I don't believe you. There's still that burden to be. Why did you not believe me? It's the same burden, just easier met.
It's not the same burden. That's an equivocation fallacy, Steve.
No, it's not. It's not equivocation.
It absolutely is. You even said that there's multiple types of burdens of proof.
Right,
that's
one of which is a burden of justification. A burden of justification is a subset of burden of proof. It's still a type of burden of proof. So you can't say it's the
same burden of proof. It's not the same, though. You just said it's not the same. That's an equivocation fallacy.
No, the meaning is the same. The level of what you require is different. And so I think you're misunderstanding.
If the meaning is the same, then no, I'm not misunderstanding. I am not convinced that you haven't presented compelling evidence, and the reason that your evidence isn't compelling is because of X, Y, Z. That would be like me giving justification. I'm not required to do that.
Yeah, when I say you haven't met your burden of proof for your knowledge claim, is that the same as saying you haven't met your burden of proof for the belief claim? No, but it's the same burden of proof. I mean, it's the same term. The term is still the same, but the levels for one is much higher. Would you agree that the level for burden for knowledge is substantially higher than just a belief claim?
Would you hang on? Let me unpack that one more time.
Sure. Would you believe that the burden to justify a claim to knowledge is substantially higher than merely claiming a belief claim? Because knowledge is a subset of belief, correct?
Yes, I would say it's higher.
Yes,
I would say I really believe it.
Yeah, but here's the thing: it's still a burden, right? And so all I'm saying is that when you talk about burden of proof, is all your burden of proof is in these discussions is to explain why you didn't accept something. That's it. You don't have to falsify it, because that would be burden shifting. That's it. It's not.
But I still think it's an equivocation fallacy, because when an atheist says you have the burden of proof and I don't have that same burden of proof, is what they mean for the most part. I don't think many atheists, even myself included, and I've studied a little bit of philosophy. I'm not an expert. I've not gone to school for it. I'm a musician by trade. So when I say that I don't have the burden of proof, I actually disagree with myself now in the sense of the philosophy of there's some burden of proof that I would have under some definitions, but that's not something I understand.
But you agree. But you agree
to demonstrate a positive claim to knowledge.
Right.
I'm gonna jump in here just for a second. My contributions to this conversation already peaked, so I have nothing more to offer. So I'm going to dip out of here right now, and so I'm going to just say have a good night, everyone, and thanks for having me.
All right, thank you, man. Appreciate that.
But do you agree that my argument isn't anything that's asking for anything egregious? It's merely the burden of proof.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm
just
saying
give you reasons. That's it. That's all I'm arguing, right? I'm not. Obviously, if I say God exists and then I say disprove that, that's a fallacy. That's burden shifting.
Steve,
Right.
I'll explain how you are using an equivocation fallacy.
Sure.
I think when atheists, when you see discussions online or at call-in shows or what have you, and atheists say theists have the burden of proof, I think you know what they mean, and it's something that you already agreed is the case.
Okay, but here's the thing: to atheism, as we established in philosophy as standard, is the position there is no God, and you would agree that
no.
Wait, hang on. Would you agree that burden hasn't been met yet?
That there is no God?
Yeah.
For speaking broadly, all possible God concepts, yes, I do believe there.
So
is
atheists
no
have not met
God.
their burden of proof in the standard of philosophy.
Is that also an equivocation fallacy where you're swapping out atheist for a philosophical atheist?
No. Hang on.
These words are not interchangeable.
You can't accuse me of.
No,
it is.
No, it
the word
is
atheism.
no.
Listen. Hang on. You got to let me finish here.
You're not letting. You didn't let me
if
finish.
If I'm in the domain of philosophy, we've already established that in philosophy, I'm going to use the word as atheism as a positive belief. Right? Agreed?
I'm talking.
I know, but when we talked about atheists, we weren't talking about that.
I was referring to a call-in show. That what's important is what people mean when they say X, and so what you have is your best friend in the world, Matt Dillahunty, saying theists, you have the burden of proof. You know what he means by that.
Oh, I do. But that's why I don't call into a show, right? That's why I don't have anything to do with Matt.
Hold on. By what he means by that, is he correct? Not what schism philosophy or these other definitions of burden. By what he means when he says that, you already agreed is true.
We're both correct though. Atheists and theists, when they have a positive claim, even he agrees. Well, hang on, it is answering. Even Matt agrees that when
he's dodging the question.
When
You're
Matt,
right. Yes,
just 1 second.
Sean asked you. Sorry.
When Matt says that Matt even says every positive claim has a burden of proof, does he not?
Yes.
Okay, so
now what does he mean by that?
He's taken the position that he's just going to sit back and say, "Look, convince me."
No, he's not.
Yes, he does. That's all he does.
He literally sits there. He literally sits there and say what he means by that is that he is not rationally justified to believe X,
right?
Until sufficient evidence is presented for X.
But he's rationally convinced that there is no God, correct? He's convinced himself of that.
No,
he believes he's rational. No, he believes there's no God.
No, he hasn't said that. He's actually advocated against that position multiple times.
Go watch the Atheist Experience.
Okay.
I know Matt.
First of all, I've seen it many times.
Matt
he's never made that claim. He has well, maybe he has said it before, but he does not adopt that claim.
Yes, he does.
I'm his friend on Facebook. I can literally ask him right now.
Go ahead, Boggy. I'm telling you right now. If you
I already know his position on this. You are lying about what Matt Dillahunty's position is right now.
I can give you a video from the Atheist Experience where he says, "My position is that there's no God, but I don't argue for that. I just take the lack of belief position." Go back to the Atheist Experience.
I'm telling you what he has said in the last within the last 10 years. His position
so he lost
has
that position.
Been no, I didn't.
So he
say
no longer
that.
believes
I'm saying that. Oh my God, are you capable of shutting up for a moment so I can finish the sentence?
Well, you're calling me a liar. That's not having
you are a liar. You are lying about what Matt
attacked my character.
Is. Matt has yes, because you lied. I'm going to demonstrate that if you.
Well, I'm not going to deal with that then, Poggy. No disrespect, but you're personally attacking me.
Can I tell you?
Hey guys. Yes
or no?
Hey guys, this is one person at a time.
Are you going to let me get a word in?
This is one person at a time. Yeah, this is one person at a time. I want this getting too overheated and stuff like that.
Would you like me to provide you a video of him saying that he believes in no God? I can do that for you, Poggy.
I don't care because I already know his position on this.
So you don't care his own words. You're muted.
Words are.
I can confirm Matt Dillahunty he doesn't bring it up often, but he is a hard atheist.
Yes. Poggy just called me a liar for saying
please,
no, he's not.
I have heard him say
no, he's not.
I guarantee it, Poggy.
I have heard him say it too, but he says it within specific context. He's saying that under certain definitions, I will say there is no God.
Yes.
But it depends on the definition of God. He will say that depends on the definition of God. It depends on if the God is actually falsifiable. This is something specific he mentions over and over again in his position. Unless the God is falsifiable, he will not say there is no God.
So,
and most gods that he interacts with or argues against are not falsifiable.
Here's the important thing, irrespective of whether he's a hard atheist or a soft atheist. He has defined atheism. That fair point. He has defined atheism as lacking belief that there is a God, and that would be inclusive of hard atheists. And because if you believe there is no God, you also lack belief that there is a God. So he has defined atheism in that way, and in that context, he says theists have the burden of proof.
Actually, that's logically incorrect. That's logically incorrect, though. Strong atheism is a subset of weak atheism. Weak atheism does not imply strong.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said it backwards. I said it backwards.
I know. I knew what you meant, but I just had to correct that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, here's the thing. That's the context when he says theists have the burden of proof. He has also acknowledged that hard atheists, if you say there is no God, have a burden of proof. He has said that. But this is kind of diverging from the point. When Matt Dillahunty says theists have the burden of proof, it simply means that atheists are not rationally justified to believe their claim unless they provide sufficient evidence. You have agreed that is true, but instead of addressing what he means, you say, "Oh no, that's not true," because in philosophy, burden of proof means this. But no,
that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
So
that's not what I'm saying, though. What I'm saying is this: he's arguing that from a lack, if you're going to do an internal critique, right? If you're going to look into his uses of terms, he's going to have to argue that neither atheist nor theist have made the burden of proof, because he's taking an agnostic position, right? He's arguing neither have made their burden of proof. Neither the atheist claiming there is no God, that all gods don't exist, that the universe is devoid of gods. He's making that argument from that internal position that position has not been met. Now, I have heard him say that all gods are bullshit before. Have you not heard him say that he thinks that all gods are bullshit, Poggy? You don't think so?
How is this even relevant, though?
Well, hang on. I'm going to explain it. Poggy, do you think that he believes that all gods are bullshit?
Sorry, what was that for me?
Do you think Matt Dillahunty believes that all gods are bullshit? Do you think that he holds that position?
Do I think I don't know what Matt Dillahunty thinks on that one, but I don't think it matters. He's not here to defend himself.
It does, because if you say all gods are bullshit, there are no gods, right?
You're not arguing with Matt Dillahunty right now. If you want to argue with him, you can call into his show. I'm right here.
No, I don't speak to him. But here's the thing.
So talk to me. I think that? No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then so that wouldn't entail anything, right? But if you say that all gods are bullshit, you're committing yourself epistemically to the position there is no God, or else you'd be irrational.
I think all the ones I've heard of are man-made. I don't think that any of the ones but that doesn't mean I can rule out some other potential God I haven't heard of.
So you think it is possible that there could be an intelligence that created the universe?
Depends on what you mean by possible. I'm going to be careful here. This is
not impossible.
There's going to be. Yeah, it depends, because there's who is it? Blake Genta. I like watching him. He talks about possible in the is it epistemically or is it ontologically possible?
Ontologically.
For me, epistemically it would be both. Yeah, ontologically. So for ontologically, I would say, for all I know, yes, it's possible.
Okay. Do you know there are atheists that say it's impossible, right?
Yeah, and for all I know, it's also impossible. That also applies.
Okay. Do you agree? Like Aaron Ra has said that all gods are impossible.
I do, and I don't like Aaron Ra for that reason.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at least but you admit that. I mean, I know Aaron. We go way back. We've had shows many.
Me too. I used to be on the Magic Sandwich show with him back in the day. I don't know.
So was Reds.
A long time ago. Yeah, I used to do the tech stuff in the background. I did all their Doctors Without Borders.
So you knew oh my goodness, what's his name? DP Jones.
Yeah, DPR Jones. Yeah, I was trying to think of his name too.
Yeah, rest his soul. Great guy. I knew DPR.
He was really nice.
Nice. Yeah, so I've been around this stuff for a very long time, Poggy. I was around during the Magic Sandwich show years and years and years ago. So this is not my first rodeo. So but here's the thing, when you said that I was lying about something, can you see why that kind of like prohibits having a good conversation? Because I'm not lying about you. You say I'm misunderstanding something, but you've used a very hyperbolic.
Fine. I will retract that and say that I don't think you are representing it accurately.
That's
not necessarily
okay.
on
that's your
purpose.
assessment. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I can see. This is how you have a civil conversation.
Steve,
I just get a little bit frustrated when I get talked over and don't get a chance to even explain myself. That's all.
No, I don't mean to talk over, but when you're going down something that's going to accuse me of something, then I just don't think it's
fair. That's fair. I'll be more careful about that. I apologize.
So we might have a unifying thing here. I don't know, depending on your answer, Steve. Based on what Poggy and I mean when we say theists have the burden of proof, do you, not based on what it means in
of course, theists have a burden of proofs. And I argue that
okay.
atheists have a burden of proof too, though, from my perspective, right?
Okay, so if I don't, so you're retracting what you agreed to before.
No, I believe all positions, and this again, my thesis is that all positions, first order and second order, have a burden of proof in order to be rationalized to hold as epistemically justified. That's my thesis.
Let me clarify what I mean by it. And Poggy, please tell me if you disagree. If you don't have the same meaning. When I say theists have the burden of proof, I mean solely that I am not rationally justified to believe their claim until they substantiate it. That's all I mean.
Exactly.
Nothing more. Do you agree that is the case?
Yes, and you're rationally not justified to believe that there are no gods or gods are impossible. Like Aaron Ron believes that they're impossible.
No,
you're not. Hang on, let me finish. But no, it's not. It's for every proposition. There's a coextensive not proposition.
I agreed. Hard atheists have a burden of proof too. Yes. Okay. Okay,
that's what I'm saying. Because every position, you got P or not P, right? Every proposition has a negation. You cannot just isolate one.
But it is off topic, though. Yeah, yes, you have to isolate it. Yes, you have to address one prong of a dilemma at a time.
You can't address
both.
You can.
Well, I mean, if you're doing an internal critique, sure.
You can neither believe P nor not P.
Yeah, that's agnostic, as we determined.
Well, I mean,
in my framework,
in your right by your definition,
which is not incorrect, though, right, Sean?
Okay, so the vast majority of time, when in everyday conversation or online discussions or what have you, when atheists say theists have the burden of proof, they mean what you agreed is the case. So
I would change the wording a little bit there, Sean, to say they seem to mean.
Okay, fair.
Fair.
Instead of assuming what they mean, they
seem to mean exactly what you agreed is the case.
This is an internal critique compared to an external critique, right? Because we're doing an internal critique of what you're talking about. And so, yes, I understand what they mean by it, and I understand why they do it for their call-in shows, right? They want to have a call-in show where they have the theists do all the work, right?
No,
but if a theist, hang on, no, exactly. Trust me, that's exactly what
I disagree with that.
But here's a theist. But JCO, you're a theist, correct? Obviously, right?
Yeah, I'm designated driver here, so
yeah. So let me. Can I play devil's advocate, JCO, to kind of bring you in here because I love your setup, by the way. That's great.
Very Before you do that, can I just say one thing, or ask one thing actually? Do you disagree that on most atheist shows that exist, let's say Matt Delahanty's show, even though maybe you don't like him, that he will ask questions and explain why he doesn't agree with the person calling in if they're claiming a god exists?
And that's ironic, yes, because that's the burden of proof I'm talking about. He actually does what I'm advocating for. He just calls it something else.
Well,
and I think most atheists do that.
I know,
but that's why I find it to be philosophically naive.
You said that
they don't do that.
Right.
No. I say that some of them say they don't need to. I didn't say they didn't do it. They're not. They say they're not required to. There's a big difference.
I would also say they're not required to. Yeah, but I think that
if you have a discussion, why not?
Kind of an irrelevancy.
It's called a burden of persuasion, burden of discussion.
Yeah, if you're trying to convince the other person that they're wrong,
well, what happens in a call-in show?
Why you think they're wrong? Then yeah,
right. Yeah. So JCO, let me ask you. Can I play devil's advocate for a second?
That's fine.
All right. So let me pretend I'm an atheist, and I call your show. By the way, this is your first call-in. You said.
It's my first call. Well,
you're never going to do another one after this, are you? No, I'm kidding. It's going great. I like to have fun with these things. So if I called your show and I'm taking a strong position, there is absolutely no God. Gods are absolutely 100% impossible. I have a burden to explain to you why I believe that. And they're saying that you have no burden. You say I've not met my burden, but that doesn't tell me why you didn't accept my burden. What a waste of time calling that would be.
It simply means if you don't meet your burden, we're not rationally justified to believe.
Right, but JCO would say, "Hey, Steve, you haven't met your burden." I didn't convince him that there is no God. He would argue that my arguments are insufficient to convince him. Same thing. What's the difference?
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay. I promise I'm trying to be charitable. I'm not trying to be rude or anything, so I don't want to interrupt or anything if you're in the middle of a thought. So if you said, here's my claim XYZ, and I say, I don't agree with you, and I say, because for me, you haven't presented compelling evidence, is that sufficient in your mind?
No, because what is it?
Or would you expect...
What's
would
the
you expect your evidence isn't compelling because X, Y, Z?
What's the? How do I know why you're? If you just disagree with me, that's not telling me anything. Again, if I tell you X equals X, you say I don't believe you. That doesn't tell me anything.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
That's all. That's all I'm arguing for.
If you have a hope to convince somebody,
yeah,
we agree there.
I agree,
and I think that most people agree with me intuitively. They just don't like the phraseology. They don't like the terminology. That's all.
I think it's not that I don't like it. I think it's that because I still think it's an equivocation fallacy, maybe not to the same extent that we're thinking. But for me, it's like we're talking about one where it's a positive claim to knowledge, that is theist claiming a God exists, and one where it's
knowledge.
Just a
that's belief. That's belief, not knowledge.
I'm sorry, a positive claim to belief. Apologies. A positive claim to belief, and the other one is not a positive claim to belief. It's simply saying that I haven't been convinced.
Right,
it's not,
but JCO, he believes,
though. All that in philosophy.
I do believe.
JCO, you believe there's a God, right? That's your belief.
God, yeah.
And so when I call up to his show and I say, "Hey, JCO, there is no God," and he just says, "I don't believe you," where's the discussion, right? He's all he has to say is, "Hey, Steve, you didn't meet your burden of proof." He can say that for anything. I can show you a mathematical proof of something. Like I can prove, like one of my favorites is 0.99 repeating equals 1. I can prove this mathematically, right? Any mathematician would argue absolutely that's absolute equivalence. There's no difference. It's the same thing as saying 0.5 equals 0.1. They're absolutely 100% identical values.
So there's two different.
Wait, let me finish. I can prove that to somebody. So when somebody says, "Hey, Steve, I don't believe you on that," they're not being rational to me because they don't understand maths. And so I don't know how to correct that irrationality or that misunderstanding of math unless they're going to explain to me where the insufficiencies are for my claim that 0.99 repeating equals 1. See?
So there's two different conversations here, two different, I guess you say, issues. One, under what we mean by burden of proof, if you claim there is no gods, you have the burden of proof. He doesn't have to prove or say anything. He's just not rationally justified to believe you if you don't make your case. The second topic is what's conducive to a conductive conversation where one convinces the other. That's a separate conversation. But by what we mean and what the vast majority of atheists seem to mean, thank you, Poggy, when they say theists have the burden of proof, they are correct. You may use different terminology, but by what the concept that they are articulating,
but like I said, in this, but here's the thing: in this hangout, atheists have the burden of proof, right? In this particular hangout, and we're doing internal. This is JCO's channel. He's a theist, so now atheists have the burden of proof.
No.
Everybody does. You do, and the atheist.
Right. That's my argument. Everybody does. Thank you.
Exactly. By what we mean by burden of proof, everyone, including us, has the burden of proof for any positive claim that we make.
Exactly. And that's right. my point. All the positions have some type of burden, and they're not difficult to meet. But they've been so trained, they've been so indoctrinated to avoid burden of proof. But would you agree that to hold a position rationally, it needs to be justified? Would you agree on that?
When you hold a position, if you're referring to lacking
any proposition
belief as a lacking belief as a position,
I'm asking you for any proposition to believe it true or false requires a justification, right?
Yes, for it to believe it true or false. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Since suspending judgment is an epistemic disposition, it's a second order disposition, right? I can say, look, I've evaluated the evidence. I've evaluated both for and against the existence of God. Am I justified to withhold affirmation for both? That is a burden of proof. That is a burden of justification. No. It's a different burden.
I don't understand you is also an option, though.
Oh, sure. Right. No, I absolutely, Poggy, and I'm glad you brought that up.
And I still would be justified in not believing you based on me not understanding you. I couldn't believe something until I understand it, like quantum mechanics.
Exactly. I 100% agree with you, Poggy. And let me give you a perfect example. If I say X equals X, you agree with that, right? Obviously, it doesn't need that much. But if I say, right, but if I use an existential quantifier and I say all of X equals X, people that don't know logic, they're not going to maybe understand what that existential quantifier is, right? So they may say, I don't believe you, but it's only because they lack the understanding of the logical notation, right? And then they say, look, and I say, well, why is it you don't believe me? What is your justification for withholding affirmation on the law of logic? And they say, well, because I don't know what the symbol means. I just said it means that for all possible worlds, X equals X. And they go, oh, okay, then I believe you. See how easy it is? That's all I'm saying.
No, I know.
I wish it were that easy.
By what you mean.
No, I mean, I'm joking a little bit.
Oh, for God. Oh, I got you. Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah.
So, but if I say
not having
because there's no variable for God.
Yeah, but watch how easy this is. Hey, Jason, again, putting on my devil's advocate. Hey, JCO, God exists. Are you convinced? Do you believe do you accept my claim?
I'll accept that.
Yeah, I don't need any evidence for that. There you go. I'm done. There you go. I'm justified. He's justified. Game over. See. This is what
you're
saying.
not justified.
Well, he thinks I'm justified.
Well, I mean, you think you're justified doesn't mean you are justified.
But that's the argument.
Exactly.
But that's the core of the argument. Is someone justified? That's what we're really talking about. Nobody's ever going to prove if God exists or does not exist. I mean, you've read all the proofs, or many of them. I have too. There is sufficiencies in all of them, both for and against. They're really made more to convince the theist to keep believing or the atheist to keep believing there is no God. There is insufficiency in any proof that's relating to the ontological status of God. I can show you that the insufficiencies in most arguments, right? But what we're asking for is, do you have sufficient reason to believe these things? This is what we're really asking for. This is why having a profound, deeper understanding of epistemology and philosophy, when we're having these discussions, I think is critical. And I don't think many online atheists even bother to even dive into the bare minimum to understand even what a proposition even is.
Possibly. I wouldn't know. I would actually say most atheists probably don't even engage in these conversations. They're just quietly atheists living out their lives.
Yeah, well, probably. I'm talking about online activists. Yeah,
we're
in a different
the
world
online
here,
ones.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't have these
minority.
conversations in real life that often.
So, Steve, by what I explained we mean when we say burden of proof, you think that not accepting the positive claim has a burden of proof?
Yes, but again, the burden of proof is a little bit different phrase, but that's going to get into nuances.
By definition, here's the
problem.
I already know where you're going, Sean.
Yeah, the burden. Yeah, I think you do. The burden of proof is a legal term.
This is the thing. More equivocation. I'm de-ambiguifying. This is exactly the opposite of equivocation. I'm explaining that the term, the burden of proof, has different usages in different domains of discourse. I agree, but the point is, I know I sound like a broken record. So, Bob claims X. Susie is not rationally justified to accept X unless Bob provides sufficient evidence. That is all we, and Poggy, tell me if I'm wrong, that is all we mean when we say.
But that takes a rationality. To suspend judgment requires active mental deliberation, does it not?
What's that?
To withhold affirmation or to suspend judgment requires positive mental activity, right? You have to deliberate.
That's irrelevant.
No, it isn't
Positive
irrelevant.
activity?
Yes, I have to say, did this person provide sufficiency in their argument? I have to deliberate whether I should withhold or, have you read Crystal's views on how to determine whether you're sufficiently warranted to believe something, believe it, or believe it's false?
You're missing the point. You're missing the point.
It seems really weird. It seems if that's the case, may I just jump in really quick?
Go ahead. Sure.
Yeah.
For me, it seems weird because this seems like burden of proof would then lose all meaning if every single thinking agent ever who hears something and thinks about it has to have a burden of proof. That's
they
silly.
do. That's how you build an epistemological framework. We all do this intuitively. We all
same burden of proof we're talking about, which is
I understand, but this is what I'm saying. This is why I'm not equivocating. I'm trying to explain that these terms have different usages. I am talking about in the epistemic sense that everybody has a burden called a burden of justification if they want their position to be held rationally. This is what it means to rationalize a position. It means to justify it.
Okay.
Wait, do you agree with that, Poggy?
I'm going to say no, and then explain why, and you can tell me why I'm wrong.
So you're going to meet your burden of proof for why you don't accept, right? You're going to literally give me your burden of proof for why you don't accept.
I'm going to let JCO jump in first, though.
Quickly, y'all think So I'm asking everybody, do y'all think that like is burden proof simply just the why? Is that fair enough, or is just a little more than that? Just the
yeah,
why.
your reasoning for your position.
So basically,
It could be evidential, but it doesn't have to be.
So circling back, if Bob makes a claim and he justifies the claim using a logical fallacy, Susie may believe it. If Susie believes it, Susie is being irrational.
No, because she might have other information she knows.
No,
right?
I'm saying no. Let's just okay.
You want to follow the fallacy.
You threw in a variable that I wasn't including in the.
But you agree. But I'm looking holistically.
I can't even.
I agree with you specifically.
So Bob claims X. Bob claims X, and his justification is a logical fallacy. Susie may believe his claim, or she may not believe his claim. If she believes his claim based on the logical fallacy, she is being irrational. If she does not, then she is being rational. That is all that is meant by burden of proof. Is that the other person? That's it. And
I prefer the term not rational rather than irrational.
Well, I prefer
burden, not quite the same thing.
I prefer burden of proof. I mean, you got to get used to just addressing what people mean by words.
Well, yeah, but here's the words. But here's the thing: these are the words. This is how I mean it. This is how it's used in philosophy. So but you're having a one-way conversation there. You're like, oh, you need to address it how they're using it. I am, and I'm in your internal critique. I agree with you. But from an external point of view, I clearly don't, because then you would have to look into my internal critique. You would have to do an internal critique of my positions.
But if someone else uses the word,
hang on, Sean, do you agree that concept? Yes, but do you agree that you can apply that same standard? And if you did an internal critique to my logical arguments as held in philosophy and epistemology, they make sense. I'm not arguing anything that is contrary to established philosophical guidelines.
What I'm saying is you're using a lot of equivocation,
and not colloquial.
But is it incorrect?
No.
Yes. If somebody says something, somebody else says something, and you know what they mean by that, and you tell that person, no, you're wrong, you do have the burden of proof, and you mean something different by burden of proof than you know what they mean, you're using an equivocation. You're not addressing.
I'm asking for an internal critique.
Sean, slightly.
But Sean, I'm asking for an internal critique.
I would say it's not incorrect. I would say it's not incorrect.
Thank you.
I would say it's dishonest.
How is it dishonest? This is philosophy. Yeah, like for example, Sean,
because you're trying to. You asked me a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, you're taking an esoteric definition and applying it to people's colloquial conversations that they're having, rather than just adopting their definitions for the sake of conversation. That's dishonest.
Yeah. Okay, so when I'm talking about biology, I should adopt the colloquial understanding of evolution rather than the technical understanding of evolution in biology.
It depends on who you're talking to.
Okay.
If you're talking to a biologist, probably not.
Okay, so if I'm talking to other philosophers, my understanding of philosophy with other philosophers out there that do philosophizing, it would make sense, correct?
I'll give you an example.
What I'm saying is,
if I'm talking to people that know philosophy, am I incorrect?
I never said you're incorrect. What I said is that it's dishonest to apply those philosophical definitions to the people talking in a colloquial conversation, and kind of like it just muddies the waters with the conversation you're having, rather than just addressing what they're saying. Rather than just addressing what they're saying as there's okay. All right. I didn't get
the reason being is I've seen.
You don't even know what I was going to say.
I've seen atheists adopt my usages, and I think they've become better at having these discussions.
I'm going to give you an analogy that I think will illustrate what Poggy's point is. I don't know what JCO believes about biological evolution. Okay, so
I don't
if JCO, so just for the sake of argument, I don't know his position. If JCO were to say evolution is just a theory, and I were to respond, I'm glad you agree that it is that evolution is a robust, fleshed out, evidential-based explanation in science. I'm glad you agree with that. I'm being dishonest because I'm not addressing what he actually meant when he said theory.
Okay, so if I said this though, hey JCO, the way you're using the term evolution is not how it's understood in philosophy. Would I be correct on that? Or in science, would I be correct on that?
You mean theory?
Either theory or evolution. Let's use evolution. If he's using evolution just means change. No, I really want an answer to that. If he's telling me evolution, let's say theory is a guess. Was that your example? I want to use the same example. You said
so theory means something very different in science.
Okay, so if he says theory is a guess, and I explain to him, JCO, in the domain of discourse and philosophy, the word theory is a well-substantiated model, right? That explains observations and makes predictive, has predictive capabilities that is accurate. That's how it's used in the domain of discourse in science. Would you agree with that? Would I be incorrect in saying that?
But what
you're wrong.
I don't
like
see
the third time I would say no, you're not incorrect. It's just like you're like the guy at the bar going, well, actually, it's like.
So don't you think you should tell JC? But don't you think you should tell JCO that that's not how the word is used?
That's not all you're
if
doing.
He wants to know about it, sure. If he just feels like this, if it just feels like this pretentious douchebag coming along, no offense, pretentious douchebag coming along going, oh well, actually, like Oscar.
You don't think you don't think atheists correct creationists all the time on that particular word?
You're doing more than that, Steve.
And how's that pretentious to do that?
Fallacy.
That's not.
I didn't say it's not pretentious. It is a too quickly fallacy. You're saying they do it too.
I'm not saying that it's justified to. I'm not saying because they're justified. That would be a too quickly fallacy. What I'm saying is,
why did you
do you
bring
think it happens? Because
you're justifying your own.
I do think it happens, and it's irrelevant to the conversation.
Okay, so let me ask you:
when a
creationist says a theory just means guess, you just say, okay, it's a guess. Just agree with it.
I would say I disagree with them because they're trying to say that science is wrong or the theory of evolution is wrong because theory just means guess. So they're actually misapplying the definition of theory to the theory of evolution, which is a scientific discussion.
Oh, so you just explained to them what it means in science, which you just said was pretentious.
I would. No, it's not pretentious. If they're
did it.
Are you going to laugh at me or you let me fucking answer you?
Oh, what's the name of this guy? Yeah.
Do you think that it is appropriate for someone who is saying the theory of evolution is wrong because theory means this, let's say just a guess, that is actually incorrect in that context? That is an incorrect definition because they're saying scientists mean this and scientists don't mean that, do they?
What makes it incorrect is the fact that in that domain of science,
because scientists don't mean that.
Right.
But I'm not saying atheists are not saying philosophers mean this. They're saying we mean this.
Right.
So if a theory in science means this, and you say this is what a theory is in science, then you're wrong.
But Poggy, what you're missing is this. What you're missing is this.
I didn't say
you're doing the exact same thing the creationists are doing.
No, I'm not.
Hey,
no, I'm not.
You are. You're saying I'm the creationist. We're using it this way. What's the difference? There could be. You can argue they're right or wrong, but that's how they're using it.
No, because if they
I didn't say it's correct or incorrect.
No, because if the theist says, hey, evolution is just a theory, I can address what they actually mean by that, and I'm being honest. And so you go further than just correcting them. Well, in science it means this, but what I would say is in science it means this, but based on I know you mean this, so I'm going to address like wild ass guess. That's what you meant.
Yeah, but they're just going to say, well, we don't mean it that way. We're not using it that way. You're straw manning my argument.
But you don't
saying.
Yeah, in which case I would say they're misapplying the term theory to a scientific theory.
And could I argue then
they're specifically no, now let me finish. They're specifically referencing a theory in science and saying that the scientists by theory mean this, and the scientists don't mean that. They don't mean that.
Okay, but then could I not argue then that the word, for example, atheist, as we just determined early on here in this discussion, I could argue that the word atheist is not being used the way you're using it in philosophy. It's as standard. I could argue that.
Yes, but I'm also agreeing with you on that.
I know. But that's all I'm saying is
atheists. I will agree. Many atheists will say you're incorrect. I disagree with them. I think that you are correct to use it that way in the context that you're using it. I just don't think that it's apt to say that I'm doing the same thing because whereas a theory in science means this, blah, 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 that whole thing is a theist saying that is what scientists mean and their theory is incorrect. I'm not doing that. I'm saying you are in fact correct to use it within the context that you are.
So can we all agree on that? That can we all agree that there is some standardized usage of these terms in specific domains of discourse? Can we all at least agree on that?
Yeah, so I can agree with that, but can you agree that when somebody uses a word and you tell them they are wrong and you're not addressing
No, I don't do that.
Hold on.
Say they're wrong.
You don't.
Yeah, I don't do that. That's my argument.
So you don't correct us when we say theists have a burden of proof?
No, of course they do. Absolutely, they do. All positive claims have a burden of proof.
I feel like you just reversed yourself from
what
you.
I've been consistent from day one. Earlier. Why would theists not have a burden of proof?
No.
They're making a claim.
So you know what I mean by that? That only theists have the burden of proof.
I disagree with that.
Hard atheist. Okay, versus a soft theist, or sorry, a soft atheist such as myself. I don't have a burden of proof.
Yeah, and that's my thesis. Is that's incorrect in philosophy? I can argue epistemologically. I don't find that
you threw the you threw the qualifier there in philosophy.
We're talking
again. You're not addressing what you're taking my definition of
you're just making up your own stipulative definitions, and sure,
no,
by your usages, sure, you have no burden of proof. You don't have to do anything by your usages. But what's the point?
No, it's not a stipulative definition.
Sure, it is.
What
yours is the esoteric one, not ours.
Why is it esoteric if it's standard in philosophy that just basic stuff?
Let me read it again. The definition of esoteric: intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. By definition,
this is
if
philosophy
you're having a
101.
conversation with philosophers, philosophers make up a small minority of people.
Oh, okay.
Which have a specialized knowledge or interest. It is esoteric by definition.
So you think philosophy is more esoteric than science?
I didn't say that, did I?
Because science is philosophy, right? Philosophy of nature.
I don't agree with that, but I didn't say that either.
Where did science come from if not natural philosophy?
All I said was that you're arguing from an esoteric definition, and now you've gone on to like 10 different things.
I don't know why it would be esoteric. I don't know what makes it esoteric.
I just read the definition of esoteric. Want me to do it again? Intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. Esoteric, literally, by the way,
you're saying philosophy is esoteric.
Philosophical debates.
Yeah.
Literally in quotes, esoteric philosophical debates.
So I want to make sure
that's
I
the
understand
example
properly.
given by Google.com.
You think that atheism as a belief is esoteric? I want to make sure I hear you.
That's not what I said.
No.
That's not remotely what I said. What I said was that philosophical discussions are esoteric definitions. The ones that you're applying, the definitions you're trying to apply to the colloquial are esoteric.
See, I think you're making a mistake. I think you're
I'm not.
See, here's the thing. There are philosophical conversations that are very esoteric. That's just, you're applying it generally. Just because there's very technical arguments in philosophy that is esoteric, I'll grant you that, doesn't mean that philosophy as a whole is esoteric.
It is absolutely esoteric, yes. You have to have a specialized interest.
You didn't meet your burden of proof on that. I don't agree with you.
I am about to, if you'd let me finish my thought.
But do you need to?
And I do.
I don't agree with you.
I would like to.
But why? I don't agree with you.
All right.
I disagree. Right? Here's the thing.
It's pointless.
But here's the thing, though. You're just proving my point. You're making my point for me. If you're gonna have
I'm not.
Listen, if you're gonna have a discussion, you have discursory burdens. You're making them right now.
I already
by
agreed
arguing.
with you on that. I said that you're misapplying the burden of proof.
Okay.
You're applying a philosophical definition to the colloquial one. That is an equivocation fallacy by definition.
But in the scope of my argument,
your definition is esoteric.
Okay, but is it incorrect?
I didn't say it's incorrect.
Okay,
and
that's
I don't
my
see
point.
why. What is it incorrect is the bar? Why is it incorrect the bar that we're using?
I just want to make sure. We're on the same page. I just want to make sure in the same page. In philosophical discourse, talking about all these topics, I don't think I've said anything that's incorrect. And if I have, then I would have to have somebody explain that what was I said is contrary to philosophy, right?
I said what you did is dishonest. It's a equivocation fallacy.
I'm going to tell you yes, because if somebody says something and you tell them no, you're wrong, and the basis of you telling them they're wrong is because you're using an esoteric definition of the word that they used. They're not wrong in what they were communicating or attempting to communicate. They are wrong if you insert your definition and impose that on them, then they're wrong. But you're not addressing what they actually said.
Here's
That's
the thing,
the
though,
point.
Sean, we all do these things, though. We all, when we're talking about discussions, we all make these burdens. You're just quibbling on labels. These all are.
You are.
No.
I'm quibbling on equivocation fallacies. When somebody says something and you know what they mean, and what they mean is actually correct, but then you tell them they're incorrect on the basis of an esoteric philosophical definition that they aren't using, that is dishonest.
But if I say in philosophy, but I want to collect this. If I say in philosophy, this is how it's understood, then I'm not equivocaking. I am literally not equivocating because I'm saying in this particular usage is different. That's not equivocation.
And don't tell them they're wrong.
Where am I saying they're wrong? Here's the confusion.
I don't think he did that.
Sean, when somebody says to me, atheism is not a belief, it can never be a belief. I've had this. You have to, believe me or don't believe me. But I've had the atheists tell me atheism can never be a belief. There is no God. That is what they tell me. Are they correct?
If somebody says atheism can never be the belief there is no God, then I would tell them they are incorrect.
Okay. And why would they be incorrect?
They're not in here.
And why are they?
Because words don't have intrinsic meanings, and also it is a relatively, both definitions, that soft atheism and hard atheism, are relatively common definitions that people use.
Right, but here's the thing: the reason why they would be incorrect is because you're appealing to linguistics. You're appealing to philosophy. That's why you're using those subjects to justify why they're incorrect to make that statement. And by the way, just by the way, Sean, do you agree that weak atheism, agnosticism, and weak theism all logically are the same position? Do you agree with that? Because I've proven that mathematically with logic.
Weak theism is a nonsensical.
Why?
That's not that. If you can define theism as the lack of belief there are no gods.
Correct.
But that would not be that would cause a lot of confusion because it's not a common accepted.
Right, but here's the thing, though. That's what happened in 1972, right? Anthony Flew wrote a paper called.
I don't agree with that.
Anthony Flew wrote a paper in 1972 called "The Presumption of Atheism." This is what JCO read my paper and made a video about, or kind of on. So that's exactly what he tried to do, though. Atheism was understood for 400 years to be the position there is no God, in colloquial terms as well. This is what it was generally understood for until 1972, where he wanted atheists. I know, but he wanted atheists to believe that atheism should be used in the negative. He convinced people of this. If theists started convincing people that theism is merely the lack of belief in the non-existence of God, it would be adopted. It would be part of the definition.
So how is this relevant to anything?
Because I asked you, is weak atheism the same position as agnosticism, which is the same position as weak theism? Whether somebody advocates these usages or not, it's the same logical position.
Depends on what you mean by all those words you just used.
I do not believe in God. I suspend judgment on God, and I do not believe God does not exist, with no positive epistemic of any kind. All have the same logical position.
If you redefined theism, which
I'm not redefining anything. These are not prescriptive definitions.
I didn't say they were.
Okay.
Okay. You are creating a new definition, though.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I'm creating a new description. These are descriptors,
which is the same thing as a definition, right?
Yeah.
But it's descriptive, right? But logic is logic. You agree, Poggy, right?
Yeah,
A is A. Thanks.
Right. So if I say that, and I don't even have to use semantics, right? If I just say not BP is equivalent to not BP and not B not P, which is equivalent to not B not P because of logic. And if I don't have any positive epistemic position, all those are equivalent logically. That's my argument.
I'm sorry, but this is all missing the point that I made earlier, which we've gotten way off track from, which is that this is all esoteric. Do you not agree with me that philosophers make up a way smaller number of the population?
I think that it's a shame. I think it's a shame because when
that's irrelevant to my question, which was, do they make up a smaller number of people? Yes. Do they have a specialized knowledge or interest?
So does pilots. So do doctors. Are they esoteric?
Do they have a specialized knowledge or interest in philosophy?
Yes. So do scientists.
So by definition, they are using esoteric definitions. Yes,
so
and
scientists are using
esoteric definitions.
Yeah, yes. I don't use that term that way.
That's what the term means. I just
there's
Googled it, and I can Google it from 5 different dictionaries.
There's different uses of the term esoteric.
I'm telling you how I'm using it.
I'm telling you, I don't use it that way.
I'm using the Google definition. Okay, congratulations. I don't care.
Then address what you meant by the word.
What is esoteric in regards to Gnosticism? With the 1st to 5th century Gnosticism. No. Esoteric knowledge relating to hidden divine knowledge. Are you familiar with Gnostic literature?
I don't see why this is.
Have you read Pistis Sophia?
Why does this matter at all?
Because the word Gnostic.
Why does this matter?
The word esoteric comes from the Gnostic literature for somebody named Sophia, fell from Plamora to try to instill man with esoteric knowledge that there was an unknown God that existed. That Yaldabaoth, the creator of the earth, was not the same God that created the heavens. That's what the term esoteric meant. You're using it in a completely different way that I don't use.
I gave you my definition already.
And I gave you mine.
Do you agree under my definition what you're talking about is esoteric? Yes or no?
Under your definition, anything be esoteric. Sure. Under my definition, is it esoteric?
Anything? No, not anything wouldn't. That's nonsense.
Sure. And mechanics have a specialized form of knowledge on cars. It's esoteric.
Yes, anything with a specialized knowledge or interest would be esoteric.
I don't use it that way. I think that nobody
intended for or likely to be. Actually, that's not true. That's the most common definition across multiple dictionaries.
I have never heard
are you suggesting
is esoteric? Never.
I didn't say a mechanic is as wow. Now you're misquoting what I told you. What I told you was that What I told you is that esoteric means intended for or likely to be understood by a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. That means that something like your definition of atheism, which is there are no gods, is esoteric. It is an esoteric definition that is only likely to be understood by a small number of people, namely
let's
philosophers.
Let's apply that to airline pilots. Do they have esoteric knowledge?
Question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Using his definition, I would say that anybody that's especially would be esoteric. I find that to be a useless.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said intended to. That means that there are things that you can say or think that would be intended for a specific audience that would understand it.
Yeah. So if I'm talking to a group of pilots,
a gamer is not esoteric. A gamer saying, have you played World of Warcraft's new release patch? That would be esoteric.
Is physics esoteric? A lot of people don't understand physics, right? I mean, not everybody runs around understanding the laws of thermodynamics. My background was in nuclear reactors. I studied nuclear reactor theory. I operated and taught people to operate nuclear power plants.
That's pretty cool.
Okay. I wouldn't call that esoteric because that's not mystified.
I would if you. It depends. It depends on how you're going to have the conversation. I'll give you a really good example that may clarify this for you, because it seems like you're just either not hearing me or I'm not being clear. So what I'm talking about, for example, you have Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is an expert in astrophysics, right? We would agree on that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
So maybe not very great one sometimes, but yeah, okay.
He's not really active as an astrophysicist anymore, I don't think. But
no, he goes more to activism and stuff.
He's more of a speaker now. Yeah, for sure. But he did the Cosmos series back in 2014. I've been recently watching it again with my wife because she's been enjoying it. And it's a fun series. But he hardly ever or tries to avoid using the esoteric language that astrophysicists use, because most people listening to him aren't going to understand those words.
Yeah, I think
so he tries to. That's what esoteric would mean. Yes, that's another synonym for it.
Yeah, synonyms not exactly.
I know you don't use it that way. I said already, this is how I'm using it. Now, you can either agree with me under my definition or not. And fine, if you don't use it that way, great. We can talk about how you use it in a different context and discuss it that way.
Yeah, I think you're making it more
I'm not.
than it needs to be, because I never heard
literally
use
just
it that
said
way.
We can use your definition.
I understand, but
I'm not doing anything
in my experience. I've never heard anybody use it the way you're using it. I think
that's the only way that's the only way I've heard it.
I've never heard it.
You can, if you look it up on every single dictionary, literally every single one is pretty much the same exact definition I've given you, which means definitions are telling you how words are most commonly used.
But they don't apply connotations and senses, right? Words have senses. And when you're using the word,
by the way, your personal experience is irrelevant.
Okay, but
you may have only heard two people say esoteric.
Okay, but esoteric has a sense of being very, very, very mystical. Has very, very, very technical things to it.
Mystical, no. The mystical is nowhere in the definition.
Esoteric,
or any definition I use.
It comes from Gnosticism,
or that are in
literally comes from Gnosticism.
No, it doesn't. Not the definition I gave you, does it? It does anywhere in the definition I gave you.
What
is there mystic?
What is esoteric knowledge? In Gnostic literature, the term esoteric knowledge means hidden knowledge. What does that mean?
Why not just use the definition?
Oh my God!
Why not just use the definition?
Why not use the definition I use?
No, because he's the one that said it.
I'm trying to tell you.
You look at one definition. Listen.
Oh, the 1%.
You look at one definition, but you don't look at any other definition. Go look at other dictionaries that define esoteric.
Steve,
I did.
You run roughshod and like talk over. Listen, he used the word. He explained what he meant by it. You may use it in a different way. Why not just address the concept that he is conveying when he used the word?
And that's fine. I
think
it waters down. I think it
why
really
not
kind
do
of
it?
Devoids it of the senses, but you can do it.
And can I just say, Hank, you said my definition is bad. It's literally the definition from pretty much every dictionary. So
no, listen to the synonyms.
You can argue with them. They're the ones saying it's bad.
Listen to the synonyms of esoteric: obtruse, arcane, mystical, ambiguous, recondite.
Those are not the words I used.
But those are synonymous with esoteric, are they not?
No, they're not.
Senses.
No.
I'm literally looking at the synonyms. Synonyms of esoteric: profound, recondite, abstruse, scholarly, ambiguous, arcane, mystical.
Where did you get mystic?
Merriam-Webster.
Okay.
These are all similar.
And I don't care because that's not the definition.
So this is what
synonyms doesn't mean the same.
But you just said it did.
I'm looking at Merriam-Webster
synonym
right
doesn't
now.
mean the same. It means similar.
I'm looking.
But you're literally falsifying your own argument here.
You're willing to take one.
You're willing to take one definition, but ignore all the others. That's called argumentum ad dictionarium.
No, I'm not ignoring all the others.
Okay.
I didn't ignore. I said, would you agree with me within the context of the word I'm saying? And then if you say that's not the definition you're using, fine, we can talk about your definition. Let me finish my sentence, please. Under your definition, what I said maybe not apply. It may not be esoteric, and that's fine. Just in the same way that under your definition of atheist, I'm not an atheist.
Okay.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying we can't use your definition. I'm saying that right now we're talking about mine. And we can't use both definitions at the same time.
Let me ask you this, though. I agree with you. Would you agree that...
Thank you.
Would you agree that philosophy is not ambiguous or enigmatic or inscrutable or incomprehensible or unfathomable? These are all synonyms. These are things that this word conveys. Do you agree, using my uses of the word esoteric, it would not imply any of those?
I don't care.
No. How would you not care? I cared about your definition.
Because synonyms are not the same word and are not the definition I gave you.
I'm not, but I'm just asking you, do you think
the answer is no. The answer is no.
See, there you go. There you go.
The answer is no. I wouldn't agree with those terminologies being used in substitute of esoteric for this specific context.
I absolutely think they can be.
What they can be under specific context. That's what I'm telling you. Every single one of those words under the similar list that you're reading, which I have here in front of me as well, can apply under different contexts. Just like if you look up any other word, not every single word in that synonym list is going to apply all the time. They're not all interchangeable.
I agree with that. But let me ask you this. Like, let's take an example, and then by the way, if anybody has any college,
agreeing with me again. That's two.
What do you mean?
That's two now. Like, I mean, when are you going to get to the part where I'm wrong about what esoteric means and that philosophy?
I think it's not a matter of right or wrong. I just think you're misapplying it. I think you're taking a very specific definition and not reading the sense of the term in linguistics. If, for example,
I am.
Let's look at the word.
The term doesn't matter. The definition is what matters.
Requiring or exhibiting knowledge that is restricted to a small group. Example, esoteric terminology. That's Merriam-Webster.
Yeah, and I understand that, and that's fine. He can use it that way. Yes, absolutely. He wants to use that. If he wants to say that logic is esoteric, that's fine.
You would say now.
But you would, right?
Now that we've established that.
But you would agree logic is esoteric using definition.
Yes, and now that we've established that, I would agree. I would agree that the discussions about logic would be esoteric. Logic itself is sort of an abstract thing.
Okay, that's fine.
But
let me ask you this,
about logic would be esoteric.
Okay, so let's say I want to discuss logic, right? And I'm having a discussion with JCO here on logic. And you come into the discussion, and I say, hey, JCO, I disbelieve the proposition, meaning that the proposition I'm holding false. And you come in and say, well, that's not what disbelief means. It means to stare in disbelief that you can't understand something. And I'd be like, well, that's not the use of reason. I'm just saying. I've had this happen to me. I wouldn't
say that.
I understand that.
Congratulations, but I'm not doing that. You're talking to somebody else now. Okay. That's not me.
But do you agree that the word disbelief in logic means a specific thing, means to hold something to be false? Would you accept that?
Sure.
Okay. So when I tell somebody I do not disbelieve God exists, and I do not disbelieve that God does exist, and they say that's a logical impossibility, do you understand why I have pushback and say, well, that's completely false? Because I do, because I don't disbelieve either. And they say, well, that can't be the case. Yeah, this is my arguments I have with atheists telling me that my logic's wrong.
Are any of them in here right now?
Well, JCO just had a video on this particular site, and this is a call-in thing. But this is what we're going to talk about. But this is what we're going to talk about initially. This was the whole point of having the Q&A, because people are telling me my logic is wrong. You guys are asking other questions, but the whole point of the hangout was Steve's logic is wrong, and nobody's shown this yet.
I don't agree that his logic was not wrong.
You don't agree that my logic, but you don't think it's right.
But
you can't. You're not saying it's wrong.
I demonstrated an equivocation fallacy.
No. My logic. Like for example, my logic on my paper, how the presumption of atheism by way of semiotic square of opposition leads to semantic collapse. That is a logical paper. I don't think you've read it, but
I haven't read that paper. No,
okay,
so I'm not going to try to address it.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about that particular logic, because that's what JCO's video was about, my paper argues that we should reject Flu's argument, and that by using terminology the way we do, it loses axiological value because the semantic collapses the term atheist, theist, and agnostic to mean the same logical position. That is a logical argument. It has nothing to do with semantics. It has to do with semiotic square of opposition.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
For me, I tend to
you want to call that esoteric? I'll accept that.
Atheist,
I won't even disagree.
I tend to put those in quotes like scare quotes. I do that a lot because I don't necessarily agree with strong, weak atheism either. I usually say anti-theist and atheist. And anti-theist, I mean opposite of theist.
Okay. And let me ask you this. When I say anti-theist, how do you think I mean it?
I don't know. Tell me.
I use the philosophical understanding, which is what? What's the philosophical understanding of anti-theism?
I don't know. Tell me.
It is the position that it is the position, contrary to protheism, that the axiological value of religion has a detrimental net value to the society. That's anti-theism in philosophy.
Yes, and I've heard that definition as well. Yes.
So again, if you were to tell me,
I didn't know that was the philosophical one, but I have heard that.
Yeah, read. There's a great paper written. Oh, who wrote? I'm sorry. I know McCormick wrote the atheist paper on Internet Encyclopedia Philosophy, but read the axiology of theism on IEP. It's a great article that explains anti-theism and protheism quite exceptionally well.
And would you agree with the following statement? The labels are not as important as the substance of the conversation that the labels represent.
Sure, but my arguments aren't tailored to that. My arguments are logical arguments. My arguments are that the logic is valid and sound. Those are my arguments.
Well, my point would be, the reason I'm asking that is because I identify as an atheist. It's a label that I choose to adopt. And this is what I tried to explain to JCO, and we kind of bit back at each other because I was a little bit frustrated. But sorry, JCO.
We both.
It's fair enough. I'm glad we were able to have this conversation though, regardless. But anyway, my position as an atheist is I'm saying I am not convinced of the proposition some God exists.
I understand that.
You can use whatever label you want for that. I don't care about the label as much. For me, what's more important is the position that I'm adopting.
I wholeheartly agree. Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing: I'm not being respected by online atheists for how the fact that I use a more technical, more strict usage. I understand. But that's the point that Jane CEO and I were talking about. I talked to him the other day, and that's really the issue, though. When atheists say that I'm wrong about philosophy, that's a different claim than what's happening here, right? And that's my point. And that's why the whole call in. This was supposed to be an internal critique of my views.
Quickly. Sure. Someone want to join the chat. Hank wants to join the chat right here.
Yeah, Hank's cool.
Before Hank jumps in, I just want to say one thing. As the Lord King God of all atheists, I command atheists to stop doing that to Steve.
Thank you. I appreciate it. See, this is how you have a symbiosis of thoughts and things of that nature. And Hank agrees. He's a theist. He agrees with my work. But
yes, I cite it when I make my arguments. So basically, I think Poggy is incredulous because he's pretty much adopting a definition that we can't use because we don't have. We need more information before we can use it properly. What do you mean by small? We have no idea, so we can't even use his definition yet.
Why not?
I want to agree with that. I think that Poggy's probably correct within his internal. He's consistent, and that's what I look for. Is the internal position is consistent? Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Where like words like small are very vague. But
and see, I'm not saying Poggy's wrong.
I wouldn't put like a line on it and say 1,000 people. Like that would be weird. I think it would just have to be like within minority, and even that may not be aptly defined. Like, I mean, there's always going to be some gray area and overlap with these types of words. And the thing is, you'd have to talk about specific things and ask, is that esoteric? Like if you said, are conversations about Democrat or Republican esoteric? I would say probably not. Since
I don't disagree with that.
Yes, but most people in the US don't vote, so
I don't.
That's also true. So I don't know. Maybe they are.
I mean, you can argue that logic is esoteric. I'm not going to even argue against that.
Logic itself, certain
arguments about
technical terms within the field of logic are esoteric.
Right? Yeah, and so, but here's the problem: I see a lot of atheists that want to argue. Exactly. They want to argue against logical arguments, but they don't have the logical proficiency to even begin to argue why Plantinga's modal ontological argument is wrong or why the Kalam is wrong. They don't even understand the logic, which makes it really difficult for like Poggy. How about this? You're not you're not a logic type guy. I'm not saying you're not logical, but you don't really bother to. Oh, you do read logic.
I could probably cite off and rattle off every single fallacy.
Just simple,
what they mean,
basic,
one at a time.
Stuff. No, formal, not informal.
I'm not like an expert. I don't consider myself.
No. Sorry, I took fallacies literally 30 years ago. Okay, contemporary rhetoric and formal logical fallacies in college. This goes back 30 years ago. Okay, so yeah.
I would say I understand it well enough to identify flaws in arguments, but not all the time.
But you know what a law of identity is: law of excluded middle, law of non-contradiction. Okay, these are basic canonical laws. I have atheists that don't even know that much.
So what?
And they're trying to argue. They're trying to argue that my arguments are invalid when they don't even know what a valid rule of inference is. That's what I find frustrating.
So they may. I'm not part of that argument. They may or may not be right. They may not know what a particular fallacy is called, for example, but they might be able to identify the fallacy when it comes up.
They could, but I see a lot of online atheists get fallacies wrong. For example, like the biggest one I see getting wrong is ad hominem. The ad hominem fallacy is not an invective. It's not a pejorative. It's not an insult.
I know. It's saying you're wrong because you're a poo-poo head.
Correct. You're using something about that person to deny their argument. And you understand that. Poggy understands that. I think everybody in the Hangout understands that. But I still have atheists who say, oh, you said I'm stupid. That's ad hominem fallacy. That's wrong. And I try to explain to them philosophy, and they get it wrong.
I see theists do it.
Attack, it's not a fallacy, yeah.
Yes.
Theists do it on a regular basis as well. So let's just say everybody, like people in general,
fair enough.
tend to get those things wrong.
Okay, I perfectly, Son, I'm glad you mentioned that. Theists do it, but here's my point. I'm a non-believer.
Sorry.
And I want atheists to up their game, right? As a non-believer, when an atheist makes a basic fallacy that they don't understand, they say something incorrect about it, it makes us all look bad. So I really do harp on them more, and I hope that makes sense.
Oh, I got you. Just promote logic and epistemology. I
write a blog on epistemology. That's why we're here.
Yeah,
even though I definitely don't consider. Sorry, Hank.
Yeah, I did not read Steve's paper. They clearly haven't read Steve's paper, so that's why we need.
Well, let me ask you, Hank: is my paper valid and sound?
Yeah, from all the experts that looked at it so far, they couldn't find
all the experts that looked at it. Correct.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure. And this is another fallacy they get wrong, called argumentum ad verecundium, or appeal to authority. I have been told that citations is a fallacy of appeal to authority. No, it's not. There are legitimate appeals to authority.
Yes, there are. Appeal to authority fallacy is an appeal to an unqualified authority,
insufficient authority,
or one that hasn't evaluated. Right? If an expert
literally an appeal to an insufficient authority.
Yes,
yeah,
I absolutely agree with that. Perfect way of stating it. Thank you. It's insufficient. They're insufficient for some reason.
In my logic, in my logic textbook, they word it unqualified, but same tomato.
Unqualified. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, or but that's not the only one, right? You can have a qualified expert that has not even evaluated the proposition, so you can't appeal to them because they haven't really looked into it.
So that would still be insufficient. Like Dr. So-and-so said, take this pill to lose weight, would be insufficient authority. That would be not a scientifically peer-reviewed doctoral statement.
I would disagree with that. If a doctor gives you a prescription, you are giving them sufficiency. You're trusting them, right?
I wasn't talking about that. I'm sorry. I was talking about like Dr. Oz saying that. Weight loss pill.
100%. Right. No. Okay, we're on board.
Drug.
I want to clarify. I don't disagree with you at all.
I agree with the doctor prescribing medication for my heart condition.
Yeah, I would say he's unqualified for a lot of different reasons,
but you can still get peer review by getting a second opinion. That being said, I actually was going to agree with you. I wanted to back up just a little bit, Steve. I don't want to back up too much, but you said something that I definitely agree with, but also I don't want to make it seem like all atheists are part of a group, because we're not. But I feel like when atheists say stupid stuff, I do call them out pretty much more frequently than I call out theists. And I kind of feel the same way that you do about your group.
I do. Yeah. Let me give you an example. This is the funniest thing I think I've ever heard in my entire life. I heard something similar, but the way this guy worded it was just freaking amazing. How bad it really was. He said, and I posted it on my community page and on my Twitter, because I run all these arguments on Reddit and community pages. And where is it? Where did he write? I know I put it here. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is the quote. An argument that starts with if is intrinsically reality deficient until the if can be removed. Let's think about this. Every argument is a conditional of if then. This is what the argument actually is. This is how you formulate a logically coherent, valid, sound, or inductive arguments, because coherency has to do with inductive. So to say that an argument that starts with if is already flawed is weirder than hell. This is not the first time I've heard this. I think that was the weirdest.
That's like saying all code is flawed because it goes if then, if else.
Right.
Oh yeah.
This is why. But Poggy, this is why I want to help atheists. I want us to have them stop saying stupid shit like that. That's my whole point.
And I don't mean this as an insult, but I would actually prefer that you just spend your time demonstrating that God exists. Then they wouldn't be atheists.
But I don't believe in God.
Oh well, this is easy. Have you seen a Dark Matter 2525 cartoon yet?
Yes.
I've seen some of their material. I don't know what that sister doing.
Who's
That is
the
a
main
throwback.
character
Yeah, I
of
have,
that
but it was a
cartoon?
long time ago.
Yeah, who's the main character?
It's like the weird little Cupid angel thing. Is
Yeah,
that it?
God, and this little buddy Cupid thingy.
There you
Oh,
go.
wow.
You
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
God.
something like that.
That's evidence of God.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that'd be something that I would consider to be too weak of evidence to be considered to be evaluative, as to be pro God. Yeah, for God. Yeah.
I would
Because
say
I think
that
it is evidence, by the way. It is
yeah,
the funniest thing. Evidentially,
no.
anything that's offered is evidence, but is it good evidence? No, of course not.
Yeah, you can say it's no
Right.
good, not good evidence, but you can't say
Yeah.
it's no evidence of God now.
I would say
Well,
it's insufficient for the claim
Yes.
being made. Yes.
And look, I've argued, and I actually hate to say it, but I agree with Crapture and Christianity and some of the other inspiring philosophy on one specific thing, that the fact that so many people believe in God is evidence of God. The belief, and this is where Matt Dillahunty and I will die on this hill because he disagrees with this, but it is still a very form of weak evidence. It shouldn't be evidence that should give you any kind of real, position to agree with them, right? I shouldn't say, hey, look,
so using that now.
Sorry.
listen,
I'm sorry.
I can't
I
say
would
that a
actually
billion
have
people
to
believe in
ask
God,
you.
therefore I should believe in God. But a billion people in God is considered to be evidential in evidentialism.
I don't agree.
I would
Then you're arguing against evidentialism. Then
No, I'm saying
what I would say
is a
is I
fallacy.
think that Matt would
evidence?
actually say that's evidence. It's just insufficient. I think that's what he would say. I'm not. He's not here, obviously.
let me think here.
But
I'm
I
trying
can't
to think.
speak for him. But I've heard
I don't
him
know if he would
say
have
that
went.
many times before. I've heard him say, for example, the Bible is the claim, not the evidence, like stuff like that. And I think he's right to point that out. But I would also say that the Bible
Why is that the
is
claim, though?
evidence. It is also evidence. I would say
The claim isn't the
It's
Bible
just not
exists.
good.
The claim is God exists. I think he's doing
Right.
a creation when he does that because he's
The Bible is the thing that is claiming God exists.
No. I don't need the Bible to claim God exists.
But I
he
would
didn't
say
that.
right. I
Yeah.
didn't say that, but I would also
Yeah,
say
go
that
ahead.
the Bible contains
Claims.
asserted evidences. It contains both. I don't
It
think
has
it's a
its own
mistake to
claims.
take the
It has
Bible
its own
as a
claims.
whole and say it is a claim or it
Right,
is evidence.
right.
I think it is both. I think it contains both.
You think
I
I
don't
can have like
disagree with
another
you.
person coming in, guys?
Yeah, go ahead. I think we're all on the same page here. I think we all want the
It's
same thing.
testimonial.
The way I distinguish claims from evidence is evidences are claims, but if they are mutually accepted, then it can be presented as evidence.
Okay,
So-
but
so-
I mean, well, that's
Probably.
true. Yeah, the true. There's some degree of that, but here's the thing: it's called consensus too. Like for example, in science, I don't have to understand general relativity to say, look, the theory of relativity explains gravity, right? I don't have a deep understanding of, even though I do know a little. I mean, like first level, stuff. I don't have to have a profound understanding of
Is there a raise
astrophysics
your hand button?
to defer to the scientists, right? But we all say this though: we all want atheists to be better at argumentation. Maybe we're not all going about it the same way.
I
But,
want everybody to be better argumentation, not just atheists.
okay, you know what? I'm going to give you that. We want all, theists included. JCO, even you, buddy.
Yeah.
But you've been awfully quiet, which is disconcerting.
Hey,
It's your show.
I'm about to say, yeah, y'all just going back
absorbing.
and forth. Y'all went so far off. Like, man, I thought my time was long.
I'm trying to get you in here, man.
So
Shoot.
here's an issue I have,
Yeah.
because maybe your ask for evidence is absurd, because like when I talk to flat earthers, you could show them, they could literally show them the curve and say, peekaboo, I don't see it.
Well, they're all
That's
trolls, man.
ridiculous.
Look, flat. I am convinced, and this is where Red Redder and I have argued. He thinks some of these people actually believe it, and I think, okay, if they do, there are some, but they're so small. Online flat earthers, I don't think any
Poe's
of them.
law. How
I think they're all
do you
trolls.
disprove Poe's law?
No,
I
you
don't
can't.
know.
This is my personal opinion, right? This is subjective.
Yeah.
I can't prove it either way or demonstrate it. Although I
think
I
there
definitely
are
think that
at
I
least
can
a
make strong
handful of
arguments
people
for
that
it.
do. I do think that there is enough evidence for some people I've spoken to that they're just completely
Eric
making it up
Debye
as they
and
go.
Jeranism. I like I said, I will claim that I am convinced beyond any doubt that Jeranism is a Poe. I'm convinced of this.
What's a Poe?
A Poe is an argument that basically says that if somebody is really pretending to be a particular position, you can't really tell if they actually hold that position or not, or they're just trolling.
Yeah.
It's indistinguishable.
Poe's law.
Okay.
Called Poe's law. It
Steve,
comes
I
from
have
a
a question, and
it
I don't
comes
want
from
to
a Usenet
distract,
group.
but
Well, go ahead, but then we have another caller. But
yeah,
So
sure.
we-
It's just a real quick question. I just want to know your paper. First of all, I'd love to see it, but also I just want to know, what is the conclusion of your paper? Like, what's the point? The conclusion.
JCO, can you get it from? My conclusion is that we should reject Antony's Flew 1972 paper, The Presumption of Atheism. Is really what it really
Okay.
concludes.
I don't like Anthony Blue anyway, so I guess that's fine.
Yeah,
Right.
but it
I
really
don't
more
think I need to read your
concludes.
paper.
It really but the logic, and even if you don't accept that conclusion, to say that my argument is invalid means that the logic is incorrect. It's a non sequitur. That's the name of my podcast, right? Non sequitur show.
Yes.
So when somebody tells me, when an atheist tells me my
No,
paper
there's-
is invalid, Poggy, would you agree that they don't know what they're talking about if in fact it is a valid rule of inference that I'm using?
If there is no logical fallacy in the argument, then yes, it would be a valid argument.
And if it's
Correct.
valid in structure,
Instruction,
and-
not we're
Valid
talking about
instruction,
form.
yes.
and it contains all true premises. But
Correct.
True
Well, that's
premises
yeah,
would be
that's right.
sound.
Yeah, it has to be
Yeah.
yes, but all sound
And
arguments
more
are
aptly,
valid.
if you accept that the premises are true, not if they are true.
But here's the funniest thing, and I don't want to get too technical real quick because I went over the caller. But it's funny is because people say, well, your premises aren't sound because you don't use the correct definition. That word, correct, which is ridiculous because it's funny. There is no correct definition. I don't even use the philosophical definition. If you really understood my paper, I use the Google definition of atheism. That's what I'm actually using in my paper, and I'm doing a reductio. But a lot of people don't understand my paper, they say it's unsound because I don't use the correct definition. I'm like, first of all, there is no correct definition. It's axiomatic. But second, I'm literally using the definition given by Google to show the problem with it.
can you? I don't know. Maybe you can't. I don't know how long your paper is. Can you sum up your paper in like down? Can you whittle it down
No.
to a syllogism?
Yeah. It's not really.
It's
not
only
to a
10
syllogism.
pages, so it's not too bad.
No.
9 pages.
It-
The 10th one is references.
Yeah.
He already
it's
told you
basically-
pretty much.
It's
It's pretty
basically
simple.
saying
See a
this.
sign somewhere.
Not
Yeah,
to
you
get
do
into
it.
the technicality of a semiotic square, but you agree. We'll make it real simple. You have hot, cold, and warm, right? 3 positions.
Wait.
Doesn't have to be exclusive, but just you
I
have
don't know.
hot.
It's weird to call those positions hot, cold, and warm. Okay. What about it?
Well, you can think
Yeah,
something's
they're
hot, you can think
relative.
it's cold, you can think it's warm, relative. Right? So if something's
Sure,
hot, it's not
sure.
cold. If something's
Yeah,
cold, it's not hot.
subject-
If it's not, if it's
subject-
warm, it's not hot, it's not cold, right? There's logical relationships to be had here, correct?
Sure.
Those are subjective assessments, but sure.
Okay, but give me a little ground here. If something's hot, it would be weird to say it's hot and cold. There's a contradiction there.
Okay, sure. To
Okay.
say both simultaneously, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my paper explains these logical connectivities between things like hot, cold, and warm, explaining that if you have the position hot, you're going to have a contradictory to it. You're also going to have what's called contraries and subcontraries and subalternations. These are all logical relationships that are defined by an Aristotelian square of opposition that is used in a semiotic form, which is esoteric. I will grant Poggy if he says that's esoteric. I'm not going to deny that. This is a very specified, very specific
caught
part of
me.
philosophy.
I'll try after he's done summarizing.
But my argument is a philosophical argument. It isn't for online atheists. It isn't for the Matt Dillahunties of the world. He's not going to understand it. It's for philosophers to understand it and agree or disagree. And none of them have. All of them I've talked to so far not only say my point is valid and sound, Dr. William Pye rewrote my paper in Ginsler logic and completely agreed with it.
Okay.
So my argument isn't for these types of conversations. My argument is a philosophical argument, and it should be treated as such if somebody's going to turn to do an internal critique. And my issue is that online atheists don't do a fair internal critique of my paper.
Yeah, I want to summarize it myself because I may be able to do it in more simple terms. So basically, Steve's conclusion is if you allow for weak atheism, you must allow for weak theism to be consistent in your logic. But if you do that, then agnosticism will be both atheism and theism at the same time.
Correct.
That is if you define theism as a lack of belief there are no gods, which no one seems to do. But why is that a problem?
I do that now. I do that now just to
here's the
frustrate
thing.
atheists.
Yeah,
So,
but here's
yes.
the thing. The logical position exists or not, whether you give it a name or something, right? The logical position still exists.
Sure.
And so I hold that for consistency, if you have weak atheism, you must have weak theism or you lose the symmetry of your relationships.
There's nothing in the universe that says you could still have weak theism.
Oh, I agree. But that's special pleading.
There's nothing in the universe that says if you have weak atheism, you must have weak theism.
I agree.
Well, I'm bringing
the
weak
argument
theism now. So,
the argument is if you don't allow it, that is the fallacy called special pleading.
Well,
that's
yes, it
that's
is.
called my that's called my WASP argument, the weak atheist special pleading argument. That is another argument that's not as formal, but it hasn't been assailed. Some people say it has. It has not, because you have to justify why you allow it for one but not the other. That is the definition per se of special pleading in philosophy, right?
I can whittle that down to one thesis statement that no one should disagree with. You can't disallow any definition.
I disallow that assertion because some definitions are so bad I can't use them.
Okay, let me ask you this: would you allow a definition that has contrary conjunctions? If I say the atheism is the belief and the disbelief that God exists, would that be a coherent definition? Sure, you can allow it or disallow it. You don't have to accept it, but would you agree there's no utility to accepting a conflicting definition?
Okay, so logical. That's a logical contradiction.
My paper is a logical argument.
Okay, so you're saying weak atheism is a logical contradiction?
No, the position of not BP does not believe. That is a logical. Not BP is a logical statement.
No, what I'm saying though is what's illogical about. So we have. Let's just take out words for a minute. You can believe in a God. You can not believe in a God. What's wrong with just calling not believe? Why is it logically inconsistent, or what logical problem is with the instead of calling somebody an agnostic, you call them an atheist?
Okay.
Well, you can not believe in not God.
Well, I can explain that. I want
to basically just being synonymous with non-theist.
Well, that's a different argument. I'm not.
It's just a linguistic issue.
No, it's a set issue. You can't set those sets equal to each other. But here's in a nutshell. My argument is this, Sean. If you don't have a positive epistemic status, in other words, you don't have a positive belief either way, then the logical position of not BP, does not believe P. So getting rid of the words, not PP can be shown to be the equivalent position of not BP with the conjunction of not B, not BP.
Okay, this
and
is all
not BPP, not B, not P, because that's the logical position. That's esoteric, yes.
Whiteboard.
You're right. No, read my paper. It explains it.
Okay, so
my whole thing would be I don't care about any of this. This is all esoteric, as you would say. For me, the only thing that matters at the end of the day is I don't think there are any gods, or God claims have not met their burden of proof. For me.
Yeah, and I think you're playing peekaboo and just ignoring the gods right in front of you.
Hank, but here's
feel free to demonstrate there's a God, and then I will agree with you.
But Pog, let me ask you this, and then we'll get to the next caller. If I'm arguing my paper from a logical standpoint, then however some atheist uses it is absolutely irrelevant, isn't it? Because they're not arguing my paper properly. They're not doing a proper internal.
No, I'm saying like it's all very interesting to somebody else. I'm sure, just not.
Yeah,
me.
to a person who wants to understand the logic and epistemology a little better, my paper makes sense to them, right? They can read it, they can apprehend it. I've had people say my paper is word salad. What is that? How does that foster any?
I don't think I would agree with that, but you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's not word salad if it's intelligible and people have read it. It is in top 1% right now. When you go to my paper, can you see what it says for the little trophy top percentage?
No, I have to go back to the page. But
yeah, go back there and tell the audience what percent.
Top 1%, Steve. Top 1% right now.
It obviously is not unintelligible. Philosophers have read my paper and messes me on it.
Okay,
it could be you're all unintelligible. I just doubt that, but
yeah, but I mean, honestly, Pog, does this sound like my paper doesn't know what it's talking about?
I read the abstract while we're talking. No, I don't think it's word salad at all.
This is what I'm trying to. When I want to defend my paper, and I have some atheists calling into my program, and they're telling me their usage is they're not internally. They're being, as you would put it, dishonest. They're not doing a proper internal critique of my argument. I can at least understand your position. I understand Matt Delaney's position. I understand why they do it for their shows. I do. Right. I can understand from an internal critique position, as Sean was pointing out, they're not wrong from their perspective.
Yeah, and for the last year and a half, every atheist that called in, except for I think 2, didn't even read the paper.
And I argue their perspective is less valuable than mine. I think it is philosophically, axiologically, and it actually is beneficial more to the theist than it is to the atheist. I think an atheist who adopts my view is better at attacking theist arguments. That's my argument.
So if your paper is basically this quad chart, JCO already posted this and kind of gave his own version of it. And I had a discussion with him about it. And it's basic.
But it is my version. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I haven't looked through this yet to validate any of this. I really did a cursory thing on this video, so I don't know if this is right or wrong.
So what it really came down to is if you define atheism as a lack of belief there is a God, well, then I can define theism as a lack of belief there are no gods. You can, even however you define atheism, you can. So what? Now I'm.
Well, you don't even need weak theism. You could just use agnosticism, right? We all agree that agnostic
I can use agnosticism, but
Right.
what I'm saying is, who
Right.
cares? It's just why is there a logical problem here? What's the logical?
You would have to read my paper, obviously, because my paper really does explain the issues with it, the axiological issues.
My question would be, why does it matter to anybody? Because nobody.
It's simple because people became an interface very annoying and stupid. People are going to see any thoughts.
Poggy, what?
No, I'm saying I don't know any theist who says.
Look at my paper. What is it in? What does it say? What subject that is?
No, I'm not saying this to you personally, Steve. I'm saying on the whole, when it comes to a conversation with somebody, I don't see what the point of bringing any of this up
why is it
for me. So I'm probably going to read it and then just discard it from my brain.
Why is it any different than any other paper?
Any conversation.
If I bring in a paper about evolution, I get some for a creationist.
It's not a scientific paper.
If I bring in a scientific paper and a creationist says, "Well, why is that relevant?" I don't care about what that paper says. It's esoteric.
Okay.
I think there's a double standard in philosophy than it is in science.
No. It's there is a double standard. You know why? Because philosophy is all in your head, coming up with things and semantic things that you guys do. I don't know. I'm not a philosopher.
Yeah, philosophy is
going out and looking at the universe, collecting evidence, objective data, verifiable, peer-reviewed conversations.
How do you have access to objective?
What does the term objective fall into? Philosophy.
Yes, it falls in philosophy.
That's irrelevant.
And how do you have access to objectivity?
It is irrelevant.
It's like talking about a car and I'm talking about the engine and you're talking about the wheels.
Yeah, really.
That's a logical fallacy to say that because science has everything is based on philosophy in that sense, which means it's a meaningless thing to say that in the first place. But
which fallacy is that?
I was just about to tell you if you'd let me. So the fallacy is going to be arguing from the specific to the general. You're basically saying that
fallacy of composition?
Because yes, it's fallacy of composition.
No, why would it be a fallacy of composition?
Yes, because science is not based on philosophy in terms of what they do actively. Scientists are going out, they're finding evidence in the real physical world, which is not something philosophers do. They work mostly in mathematics, which is an abstract concept. Scientists don't work strictly in the abstract. They do abstractions. There is philosophy involved, but they are not strictly working in the abstraction, which is what makes it a arguing from specific to general or a fallacy of composition. Sorry.
Oh, so that's great. Because string theory is on science then, by your definition.
Poggy,
I didn't say string theory was science, did I?
Hang on, it's math.
But thanks for the straw man.
But Poggy, what method does science use? It uses methodological naturalism, which is a philosophy. Does it not? That is philosophy. Okay. Methodological naturalism is philosophy.
And still, what are they going to do? Are they going to just do abstractions in their head, or are they going to go out and find objective evidence?
To say that science is a predicated on philosophy. To say that science is a predicated on philosophy.
I didn't say science isn't. I didn't say it isn't.
Okay, so it is. So science requires.
If philosophy. I did, I misspoke.
Okay,
no, that's not what I meant.
No,
what I'm saying. Thank you. What I said was, or what I meant to say was, is that science, while it might be based on philosophy at a fundamental level, like methodological naturalism, we would agree is a philosophy. The act of doing science is not philosophy.
Okay, so what about the
process is philosophy?
What about the hypodeductive method? Hypothetical deductive method. Is that philosophy?
What?
That's a core of science. Is a hypothetical deductive method.
I'm not a scientist, so you're getting into esotericisms again.
Well, okay, but what
I'm just
technical thing can I talk about?
My surface level understanding. I'm telling you a surface level understanding of what science is, just generally speaking.
Well, if you look into science,
generally speaking,
I'm sorry.
A doctor is not going to go to a bunch of patients and just start doing math on them. They're going to test things. They're going to give them medications, give them treatments, see what the results are, and then those results will be mathematically deduced, inductive, whatever that they're doing with their findings.
Right.
That process is not philosophy. That little process there is not. No, it's not.
It is.
That process of them actively doing stuff in the real world to look at objectively verifiable evidence is not philosophy.
I disagree. That's a philosophical method. That if you look into statistical
The method
inference,
is philosophical. The process is not.
yeah.
You know, what are you? Are you a programmer? I want to figure out what dictionary to pull up.
Hang on.
To communicate with you.
Is it philosophy for me to cook a pie?
Yes.
In some sense, yes.
What was that?
If I physically take a pie and cook it, that's philosophy?
I think that everything boils down to philosophy to some degree, but I mean, is there philosophical arguments? You know, is there a philosophy of pies? No, but there is a philosophy of science. There's a philosophy of knowledge. There's a philosophy of truth.
Right.
Who defines?
So I have to have some knowledge about how to assemble a pie.
When we say something is knowledgeable in science, what scientific knowledge is, that's philosophizing. That's philosophy. Philosophy is saying what we mean by scientific knowledge. Yeah.
But I'm saying that I feel like it is dishonest and equivocating of you to say that your paper is in any way similar to the theory of evolution. It's not. The theory of evolution, while it may be both based, you did, but while they may be both based on philosophical principles, methodological naturalism or whatever, what evolutionists are doing out there in the real world, looking at fossils, going into the fossil record, doing DNA, all that stuff, that's not the same as you doing math and trying to say that this is equal to this is equal to this.
Do you know there's a philosophy of math too, right?
That's not. Oh my God. I know math is philosophy. That's what I'm saying. It's an abstraction.
Okay. And who defines what abstraction is? Science or philosophy?
Philosophy.
Right.
And again, everything is based on philosophy at a fundamental level. I already agreed to that.
That's just why I think it's profound that
I just find it meaningless.
Know nothing about it. But
I just find it a meaningless thing because you're completely equivocating because you're using that to dishonestly equivocate.
Couldn't disagree with you more.
You are.
Anyways,
you are. You literally did that.
No, he didn't.
Not. No, I didn't. Not even remotely so.
You did.
Oh, I was like,
were you listening? Maybe I missed it.
Hell yeah, just say because you kind of. I know my job being quiet right now. I'm just moderating this point in the quiet.
Excellent. Poggy, are you a programmer of some kind?
He's a musician.
No.
He's a musician.
Video editor now, but I'm degree in music.
Poggy, do you have a podcast or do you just do you have your own show?
I do gaming.
Okay, because you're very articulate and you express yourself well, so I thought you might have a show.
I do, but not like a show where I talk about stuff. It's just a gaming.
Let me ask you this, Poggy, because do you agree that there's something called music theory, right? Yeah. So if I start, and I'm not going to get into the topic, but if I start like arguing about the circle of fifths, and I'm just saying that, and I start like, okay, the circle of fifth goes C, G, A, D, when we both know it's C, G,
I don't even remember
D, A,
the freaking circle.
Yeah. Assume that I'm correct here, okay? Because
it's been so many years.
I literally took music theory 30 years ago as well. I took some courses in music theory.
Yeah.
But if I argue something that was completely incongruent with what we understand of music theory, there's an argument to be had there. So if I write a paper on music theory and somebody comes in and goes, well, that's not how I use the term circle of fifths, I'm like, well, then you're using it completely different than I'm using it.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing.
We do agree on
all
more.
I'm saying, we do. We agree on more than we probably think we do. But I mean, like, my thing is, all I'm trying to explain is that what I heard you say earlier, and if you didn't, I'm okay with that. That's fine, and I'll shut up after this. What I heard you say earlier was that your paper is in the top 1%, which is really cool. By the way, that's really freaking cool. But congratulations. And what I would say is that it's not science.
No.
It's not the same thing, and I feel like if I heard you say that, maybe I misunderstood you. But it seemed like you're saying, well, it's just as valid as science.
No. What I say was, what's the difference?
He was using that as a reputation to it being word salad.
Right, exactly.
Okay, 100%. Yeah, that's fine then. All right.
Because when people tell me my paper's word salad, I'm like, oh shit. If I read a paper on, like, I tried reading, I don't know if you ever tried reading it, but read the paper on the existence of a universe from quantum fluctuations. 5 people in the world probably understand that paper. I mean, it's like, oh, like God. I start talking about
I think
mathematics.
Most of them would say they don't understand it either.
Yeah, look, I like basic mathematics. I can do calc level stuff, basic calculus stuff. When you start getting into these advanced mathematics of topologies and things of that nature, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. But I'm not going to say they're wrong.
But there was a quantum physicist who said, I can't remember who his name is, but he said anyone who says they understand quantum physics doesn't understand quantum physics.
Yeah. Which, you know what, a lot of scientists
Sean
actually
Carroll
disagree with that. Sean Carroll, yeah.
Sean Carroll, thank you. Yeah, that's it.
All right, so what's the next question here? And thank you, Poggy. Like I said, I think this is actually a healthy conversation. I don't mean it to be adversarial. I like your approach.
I still don't know the thesis statement.
What is a little heated. Sorry about
your paper? What is the basic? What is your overall thesis?
that we should reject Anthony Fleur's proposition. They'll adopt as a standard uses of atheism and philosophy the belief that God does not exist. Excuse me, the lack of belief that God exists.
Okay, so you just think in philosophy they should not adopt that.
Correct. And but again, I would argue in general.
That's opinion based, though, right? Like it's not like logic.
The conclusion is opinion. Yeah, that part of the conclusion is obviously subjective, right? It's based upon the conclusion of the argument that is a valid and sound argument that these relationships do exist. That's the core of the argument, is that there's internalized connections between logical positions, like I believe versus I do not believe. There's connections to be had there, and my paper shows, by way of what's called a square of opposition in a semiotic form, that these relationships exist, these propositions exist. And if you really wanted to really do a too long didn't read, is I think it's axiological value to have each logical position have a different name, so that it has avoidance of any ambiguities. If you really want to know I mean, if you just want to will it down to the barest of minimums, I believe that the position, I believe there's God, I do not believe in God, and I have no position either way, is three epistemic positions towards a proposition, which in philosophy would be, if you believe a proposition is true, you should call it this. If you believe a proposition is false, you should believe it this. If you suspend judgment, you should call it this. And whatever you want to call it is kind of irrelevant, but there are three independently different logical propositions or logical positions. And I see a lot of atheists don't recognize that. They don't get that. Okay. And theists as well, I guess. I'm gonna throw in theists too. It's just like
so like I told JCO, and maybe because he basically put in the title of the video and in some of the wording, atheism cannot be defined as X.
I corrected him on that. I had that conversation with him in Discord. Yeah.
I was gonna say, so my whole position in the title was just, it cannot be just as that. I think a lot of people.
I think he changed it. Yeah.
It was always just. It was. I think a lot of people just say it's all the cannot.
Well, I wouldn't even go that far. I think you're making a very definitive statement by saying that.
It still can, because
it still can.
Yeah. Okay.
I would argue. I would say this: atheism isn't just this.
Okay. What I told him is that if you can reasonably argue that it would be more conducive or clearer or more convenient or what have you, which you seem to be arguing here, which I'm fine with. That's a perspective, and perhaps in the realm of philosophy, it's better that way. I don't know, but for everyday, I would say just be careful trying to you seem passionate about this, but pushing it on everyday parlance and not addressing someone's position and telling them they're wrong based on your definitions of words.
I've never done that. In 10 years, I've never done that. Okay. What I've argued is when they tell me that my logic is wrong, but don't address the logic. When they tell me that atheism only has one specific definition and cannot be anything else, because that was the 5 years ago, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, that was the position of online atheism in the atheist community. On the atheist experience and Reddit and everywhere I ran into atheists, it was atheism is one thing, the lack of belief in God, and they got that from American atheists. And I would argue American atheists was wrong from the beginning because it's polysemous, and now atheists are going, hey, it's polysemous, but don't acknowledge because it's polysemous. American atheist statement that it's only one thing is clearly incorrect. So I was proven right.
Yes, and I watched Steve pretty much all those 10 years. I haven't seen him do that.
Yeah, I've never said, look, you're wrong for using a specific usage. What I'm saying is, if you do, there are some implications. Let's discuss them.
Okay, what is one implication?
Wait.
Well, one implication is that I can start using lack atheism as a way to screw up all the atheist arguments.
What do you mean? How?
Because I could say theism is a lack of belief in no gods. Yeah. And that screws up a whole bunch of the Reddit tier arguments.
You could say, when I say I'm a theist, this is what I mean, and I'll just take you at what you mean. You can do that now, even if I defined atheism as the belief there are no gods. You can do that.
And that breaks literally 80% of the Reddit tier atheist arguments.
Yeah, but you do agree that if you don't believe in the non-existence of God, it doesn't actually make you a theist, though, right? I mean,
by the near universe, I almost want to say universal, but there's always that one. But I'll say colloquially, it is universally accepted. Like, it's not the word theist is not, what's that word again that means multiple definitions?
Polysemous.
Yeah, theism in parlance, in everyday parlance, is not polysemous.
Okay, well,
atheism is. But
yes, I agree. But there's also types of theism, right? There's classical versus non-classical theism.
Yeah, but still, but they all fall under they all fall under the umbrella of believing in a god or multiple gods.
But that's only because of words. 50 years ago, we wouldn't be having this discussion, right? Atheism. Wait, hang on. Atheism, you understand, 50 years ago was the same thing. The belief there was no God. We would not be having this discussion. Nobody adopted belief or non-belief for atheism 50, 60 years ago. Hardly. It was almost unheard of.
Here's my point, though, is that Hank is saying, well, if you do that, I can do it too. You can do it too, irrespective of how I define atheism.
Right, but you're missing.
And
you're missing
I
the
would
point
actually.
here.
I think maybe I can clarify a little bit.
Go ahead.
I would say to Hank, if Hank is saying that just dismantles or destroys a bunch of atheist arguments, it doesn't, because I'm not arguing with someone who defines theism the way he just did. I'm arguing with people who define theism as I believe actively there is a God.
Yeah, I think that's it's an important point to make, and I think Hank might be a little off on that, honestly. Yeah. But I try to see what he's coming from. But do you agree?
But it's a self burden of proof. So yeah, lactings exist to shift avoid the burden of proof when it's appropriate. So that's why it kind of breaks a lot of the arguments.
The burden of proof. If you do that, you don't have the burden of proof that we were talking about earlier. Obviously, there is the
Which is like go break the empiricism.
We got 10 minutes left, guys. About 10 minutes left.
So real quick though, it still shows that there's those positions, right? These are all logical relationships between I don't believe P, I don't believe not P, I believe P, and I believe P. These are all relationships. That's what my paper is about. What do you want to call them is irrelevant. These positions still exist.
Right.
I feel, and by the way, do you agree? I think it was Hillary's or was it Sean, that 50 years ago, it was not in the colloquial thing about what atheism was merely a lack of belief. This only has been used colloquially for like 50 years. For 400 years, it was well understood.
50 years ago, I was just being born, so I have no idea.
Okay, but you go read the paper. I mean, Anthony
I take you at your word.
Anthony Flew literally says he understands that under normal usages, atheism is the belief there is no God, but he wishes it to be used as non-belief. That's what his request was. This is why atheists today believe this. They accepted Flew's argument, whether they've read it or not. This was not a thing 50 years ago.
But I'm just in this. So what? Words change.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And if Hank starts using the word theist to mean somebody who lacks a belief there is no God, that 100 years from now, a theist could mean that, right? But that loses precision. I would argue against that, just like I'm arguing against Flew's argument.
And I would just simply say, well, do you ask him to clarify further? Do you believe?
But it still loses precision.
Okay, that's fine. If you want to say it's more precise in the realm of philosophy, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah, because look, when somebody says they're a theist, you know they believe in God. Why would you want atheist to be ambiguous? Why would you want atheist to mean, oh, well, I believe there's no God, or it means lack of belief? It doesn't tell me what your position is. It's ambiguous. If you apply the same standards to theists, why would you not apply your same standards to be a consistent thinker?
Good point.
Yeah, if you want to have consistency, if you're consistently rational and you say, look, I want theism to be understood as the belief there's no God, so there's no ambiguity. Why would you want imprecision in the term atheist to mean something that could be two logically different positions? Theism, as you understand, has one logical position as we normally use it. Why would you want atheism to represent two different, distinctly logically different positions? I think that loses precision.
Can't if I tell you what I meant.
That's an axiological value argument, right?
It can't if I tell you what I mean by it. If I tell you what I mean by it, it means the thing that I told you in that context.
But why would you want society to use the word so differently? Why would you want that word to represent?
I didn't say what I want society to do. I told you what I want to do. The word
but I don't have to ask anybody what they mean if they're a theist. Look,
I can tell you.
I don't see why it's ambiguous though. What's ambiguous?
Okay, I can explain it. Think, Hank. When you say you're a theist, I know you're BP. If the proposition is God exists, right? I know your position is BP. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so because Hank understands this, right? So it's not word salad. I can convey meaning to him by these terminologies, right? So I asked my question. He was able to apprehend it, and he answered the question, and I would agree with him, right? Now, if I say I'm an atheist, you don't know if it's B, not P, or not BP and not B, not P.
You do.
No, you don't.
You do.
You have to ask them to clarify.
Yes, you do. Because you ask them. That's what a conversation is.
You're missing the point,
no. Let me get this out. Let me get this out. Let me finish my thought, please. I understand without clarification, but when are you going to have a conversation where there's no clarification? If somebody says in a sentence, I really like that bark, Are you saying words can't have multiple meanings? Or are you going to say, well, they clearly mean bark on a tree? That's the only viable definition.
What I'm saying
That's
is,
not true. Clearly, let me finish the sentence, and then you can go, and I'll shut up. Bark can also mean other things. Atheism can mean multiple things. Words often have multiple meanings. All you have to do is say, do you mean definition 1 or 2 in the dictionary? And then they go 1, and you go, okay, thanks. And then you're done with that part of the conversation. You don't have to sit there and tittle on about, well, it's confusion, ambiguous. That's nonsense.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's not true. Because
hang on. Let me.
It is true.
You go,
Poggy. Here, I tell you, I'm an atheist. What is my position? There's no way to derive that without asking.
I don't know. You tell me.
Right. Ambiguous. If I tell you I'm a theist, there's no ambiguity.
It's not ambiguous once you tell me, is it?
That's what ambiguous means. It means undetermined.
Yeah, here's the problem.
Okay,
it's
so
Poggy, here's the problem I get because when the conversation goes long enough, the agents will switch back and forth when it's convenient for them. They'll Montbelly it. So I have to make up new words. So I can't let them Montbelly. It is annoying. It is ambiguous.
If someone is inconsistent with their definition,
that's why you have conversations.
You have conversations. You say if somebody's switching back and forth their own definition, then that person is being inconsistent, and that's them problem.
Yes,
but Poggy,
that would be a person who I disagree with. Somebody who's flip-flopping on their position.
Okay,
yeah.
But Poggy,
but as soon as I tell you what my position is, it's all pointless.
You agree that
it's ambiguous. It doesn't matter.
You agree that there is what's called a neuter term, which is the middle term, that is no position either way, right? You agree that a position exists?
5 minutes.
It depends.
Well,
no, it's not depends. It's logic. Either it does or it doesn't.
Because to me, atheist would also not have a position on yes or no. There is a
for any proposition. There is a logical position that neither accepts P and accepts not P.
Yes, that is one of 3 possible.
Correct. 3, absolutely correct. Now, the atheists are calling that atheist because they're trying to assume two of those 3 epistemic dispositions, and they have not justified why.
You're addressing 2 prongs at the same time. When I address the prong of yes. Well, you literally said P and not P.
There are 3 epistemic dispositions. 3 epistemic dispositions.
There are only 2 if you address one prong.
No,
either I believe
for any
P
given
or
P.
I do not believe P. No,
for any
those are the only
given
2.
P.
Wow.
I'm telling you, you're wrong.
There are only 2 possibilities. No, I'm not. If you'd let me finish my thought, there are only 2 possibilities. I either accept P or I do not accept P. Correct?
Those are not, but those are not epistemic.
When I'm addressing
both.
When I'm addressing,
you have an equivocation.
P, I cannot affirm or deny it.
When I'm addressing P, there's only 2 possibilities. I either accept P or I do not accept P. When I'm addressing is there a God, I only either accept the claim there is a God or I do not accept the claim there is a God. If I'm going to talk about not P, that's a separate claim.
So I want to make sure I hear you correctly. If I tell you there are 3, and Sean agrees with me on this, if there are 3 epistemic dispositions towards any proposition, believe, don't believe, find true, find false, or suspend judgment. Those are 3 positions. They're completely different. I find the proposition true. I find the proposition false. I suspend judgment, have no position either way. Do you think that is not correct?
That only works. Yes, that only works if you address both prongs simultaneously.
No, it's basic propositional logic.
By definition, by definition, you said P.
Do you know what the logical excluded is?
2 prongs.
You violated.
Do you know what a dilemma is?
Yes. And I also know what principle
of dilemma is P and not P. Not P is a separate claim from P.
I was disagreeing with Poggy until he elaborated on the prongs, and now I actually
he's wrong. Logically wrong.
Agree with him.
No, I'm not wrong. I am absolutely not wrong.
What's the law of exclusion?
You are woefully confused.
How am I woefully confused?
Because you in conversation and discussion, you only address one prong at the same time. You don't say, "Do you believe there is a God?" or "Do you believe there's not a God?" You say, "Do you believe my claim there is a God?" The answer is yes or no. There is no middle term.
False. You can just not affirm or deny.
No.
You can just not affirm or deny, Poggy.
Hey, I think I'll clarify this. I'll clarify this. The law of excluded middle. A proposition is either true or false. Proposition. Poggy believes a God exists. That is either true or false. He either does or he does not. That's what he means.
Beliefs are not dichotomous, right? You can believe a proposition. Beliefs are not dichotomous.
They are.
No,
they are.
They're not.
You either believe or you do not.
No,
I am either convinced. I am either convinced that X is true, or I am not. or I
Yeah,
am
wrap
not
this up in 2
convinced
minutes,
that
guys.
it's
About
true.
2 minutes.
You're misunderstanding me, Poggy.
I'm either convinced the ball is red, or I'm not convinced the
Is
ball
this
is
okay?
red.
Let me
Whether
ask
or
you
not
this.
the ball is
Hang on.
blue is a separate proposition.
Is this a dichotomy? Answer my question here. I believe the proposition true. I believe the proposition false. Is that a strict dichotomy that there's no other propositions?
Two different questions.
No.
P or
Those are
not?
two different questions. They're addressing two different
But I'm not
things.
asking you that. Is it a strict dichotomy?
Yes,
or no?
you are. No.
Is it a strict dichotomy? No, it's not. Correct.
No.
That's not a dichotomy. But
that's because you're
believing or
addressing
not
two different
believing
things.
Believing
Every
or
proposition
not
has
believing is
every proposition has a negation. They're coextensive. You have to relate them together.
You're addressing two different things.
Steve,
no,
what
it's propositional logic. For
the claim there is it God? I know it's what propositional logic is. I've studied it for years as well. The thing is that you're missing
I don't think
is
you have.
that P. Yeah, I have. P and not P are both claims that carry with them a burden of proof.
We're not talking about the burden of proof.
I
We're talking
can
about
disbelieve both
sententional
claims.
logic.
I agree with you. I can disbelieve both claims. The point is that when it comes to one of them, we address one of them at a time in conversation, and we say, "Do you believe P?" And I say yes or no. I either believe P or I do not believe.
That's a true dichotomy.
Now,
Yes.
then you can say not P. What about that? That's a separate claim.
Yeah,
They
I think you're arguing silly, to be honest with you, because it's not logic.
Okay.
Because you're basically just saying sure, the law of excluded middle is defined as not P or P, right? I mean, it's either P or not P. That's the law of excluded middle.
Yes.
So if I'm arguing logic, and I say, what is your epistemic disposition towards these propositions? I'm not talking. I don't care about atheism or theism. There could be any proposition. You can either believe one, P, and if you don't believe P, there's one of two options. You believe it's false, or you have no position either way. That's logic. That is logic. If you don't believe a proposition, there are only two other epistemic dispositions. As Sean noted, there are three epistemic dispositions: believe, disbelieve, withhold judgment, or suspend judgment. That's epistemology. That's a fact.
All right,
and anybody who
guys.
disagrees, I would not take seriously to say that they studied logic for many, many, many years.
All right, guys. We gotta
Anyway,
wrap it up. We wrap it up. Anybody got any closing remarks right here?
Yeah, where'd he go?
Last word. I'll
probably be on the machine lights later. You
go.
can check me out there. I also have my own channel. You can look it up by looking for Hanko Flamo on YouTube.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, find me on Non-Sequitur Show or Steve McCrae. These topics all the time. I am on Twitter Spaces, and I probably have one tonight as well. Somebody wanted to get with me. And so I'll probably have a Twitter space. So follow me at Steve McCrae _. And I appreciate JCO. I'm sorry I can't get long-winded and stuff like that, and we didn't get into the paper, but I'm glad that you read it and you took the time to apprehend it, and I think that you agree with it. I haven't watched your video fully, but I intend to. But I appreciate that you getting it out there, and I look forward to all the questions. But I'll ask from the audience is, don't come at me from some kind of atheist experience point of view. If you're going to address my argument from a philosophical position, talk about logic, talk about philosophy. Don't come at me with atheism as some lack of belief in God. It's irrelevant to my paper. It deals with the evaluation of Flu's argument, and this is what I'm saying. When people say my paper is wrong and they don't know what the hell my paper is about, I can't take them seriously.
All right.
And I'm a nobody, so I have no podcasts or shows or anything to promote. So, but I appreciate the conversation with everybody.
And by the way, real quick, Sean, do you want? I wrote a little primer on the laws of logic, the three canonical ones. There's more if you ever want to check it out. I just Googled it for you. I'll put it in the private check there.
Say that again now.
I wrote a little basics of the law of logic, dealing with law of identity, law of non-contradiction, law of excluded middle, and I'd love to get your opinion on it if you want. But I just put it in the private chat there. But I go through and I give a brief explanation using logic of these types of canonical laws of logic.
Sure, I can look it over and tell you what, give you my opinion on it.
Yeah, cool.
Right.
All right. Well, let's do it again sometime. And good talking to you again, JCO.
Oh yeah, good time moderating, wife from the sidelines.
I hope this was entertaining and informative. I read some of your comments, and I wish next time, if you want, we can go through some of the comments that so many people left in your videos, because they were so off base and they didn't understand anything that you were saying, and I find it disappointing. So let me just leave with this: for the people that watch these videos, don't have canned responses, don't have cognitive biases and coming in to evaluate things on topics that you haven't bothered to kind of familiarize yourself with, because JC's argument, from what I've seen so far, isn't incorrect in philosophical terms. And you can't just say, look, you're wrong because, atheism is only a lack of belief. That's not an argument. I mean, it is an argument, but it's not a good one. It doesn't defeat anything that JCO's argued. And I want to appreciate the fact that he's willing to go out there and say these things. And I wish atheists would too. A lot of people have, don't get me wrong. A lot of atheists have adopted my usages, like Answers in Reason, Dave Trolley, from Twitter, who was part of Atheists and Reasons. And I'm slowly getting Atheists for Liberty to get there. But I really like to see people talk about the argument rather than just say that JCO is wrong. Don't do that. It doesn't help anybody. Show why he's wrong. That's your burden of proof.
I'm good with that.
All right, guys. Appreciate coming to the screen. I'm going to continue. Y'all put y'all in the private comment section. I'll move y'all to the comment section. Some of y'all links. But in that, y'all, I'll probably have a stream like this again someday. But I don't know when. But yeah, that's all I got.
I'm going to leave here. And thank you very much, JCO. Seriously, this was fun. Got a little contentious, but that's how it goes, right? I mean, it was all educational.
Yeah, that's fine with that.
Peace, brother.
All right, guys. Take care, guys.
See you guys.
Oh, shoot.